Chapter 1104. So powerful. Just one strike and he killed the ferocious beast puppet. This power is unbelievably powerful. He is only at the middle stage of the Purple Mansion realm. How can he possess such power? That's right. Just now, many examinees risked their lives and couldn't harm the ferocious beast puppet at all. He destroyed it so easily. He is too powerful. No wonder Gato was defeated in one punch. He didn't lose unjustly. Even if he wasn't careless, he wouldn't be a match for this kid. He is so powerful. Could he be a descendant of some great clan? Possible. Otherwise, how could he be so arrogant and offend so many descendants of nobles in public? The surrounding examinees were also shocked by Xia Ping's strike. Even if there were occasionally people who could pass the test, it wasn't as easy as this. He made the ferocious beast puppet unable to move in a single move. Such power was undoubtedly above many examinees and could dominate the Purple Mansion realm. In fact, even a normal fulfillment realm cultivator might not be a match for this kid. Damn it. This kid is extraordinarily powerful. Gato didn't lose unjustly. He actually passed the Qingquan faction's test. This kid is in trouble. What trouble? We are also Qingquan faction's outer sect disciples. This kid can't run away. That may be the case, but it won't be so easy to deal with him. Killing fellow disciples is a great taboo. Many descendants of nobles had ugly expressions. They felt that they had greatly underestimated this mysterious person. Now that Xia Ping had become a Qingquan faction disciple, all their previous schemes were in vain. With the protection of the identity of Qingquan faction's outer sect disciple, no one dared to scheme against him. Xia Ping didn't care about the surrounding people. He quietly stood in another region. The people in this region were basically the examinees who had passed the test. As long as all the examinees here finished their test, they could leave and follow the examiner into the Qingquan faction. "Hey friend." At this moment, a blue-haired man at the side greeted Xia Ping with a very enthusiastic attitude. "You are?" Xia Ping raised his brows and looked at this blue-haired man. "I am the 18th Prince of Loki Kingdom, Ku'er. May I know your name, friend?" asked the blue-haired man Ku'er. Through Corinne's description, Xia Ping knew that the Loki Kingdom was one of the 6 major star regions ruled by the Qingquan faction. It was even more powerful than the Guard Kingdom. As a prince of this kingdom, one could imagine how prestigious his status was. "My name is Xia Ping." Xia Ping looked at Kerr. "I offended Gato and the others just now. How dare you talk to me? What are Gato and the others? They're just some rich playboys. In the universe they're just like ants. The truly powerful ones are the martial arts experts, the saints. One word and they'll all die." Kel smiled. "Moreover, we've all entered the Qingquan sect. We're all outer disciples, so there's no difference in status. Why don't we become friends? That way we can take care of each other in the Qingquan sect." He was speaking from the bottom of his heart. It was because in the Heaven and Earth sect, there were just too many princes of various countries or descendants of high officials and nobles. Just a random stone thrown at it would be met with dozens of them. Status was the most worthless thing in the Qingquan sect. Moreover, the number of Heaven and Earth sect's outer sect disciples was simply too many. There were billions of them. Every few years they would recruit a large batch of them. After hundreds of thousands of years, the number would be shocking. Among so many outer sect disciples, it was very serious to plot against each other and form cliques. This was actually equivalent to a country. If he became a loner and fought alone, he would definitely be suppressed and his life in the Heaven and Earth sect would be extremely miserable. Therefore, he naturally wanted to rope in some powerful outer sect disciples and form a small circle. Xia Ping's performance just now, defeating Gato and the dire beast puppet with one punch, showed his formidable strength. If he didn't rope in such a person, then what kind of prince was he? "Okay, what I like to do the most is to make friends. In the future, let's hang out together." Xia Ping's eyes lit up and he reached out and patted Kerr on the shoulder. Corinne, who was hiding on Xia Ping's body, was speechless and looked at Kerr with pity. No matter how he looked at it, this guy seemed like a scapegoat for Xia Ping. He still wants to rope in this scourge who causes trouble everywhere. Isn't this clearly asking for trouble? When the time comes, there won't be many benefits and this kid will be the scapegoat. At this time, Kerr didn't know why, but he suddenly felt a chill run down his spine, as if he had done something quite incredible. But he didn't know where this feeling came from. After thinking about it carefully, he gave up delving into it. "By the way, brother Xia." Kerr looked at Xia Ping and said, "Do you know that becoming an outer sect disciple is just the beginning? After that, we still need to have a ranking battle to measure each other's strength and potential." It is said that this ranking battle is very important. If you rank high, you can get considerable rewards. But if you rank low, there will be no benefits and there will even be punishment. Xia Ping said carelessly, "It's okay. No matter what ranking battle it is, I will kill anyone who dares to stop me. The first place among the freshmen will definitely be mine." Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Hearing this, the eyes of the surrounding people all looked over. It seemed that Xia Ping's words had attracted their attention. An arrogant and ignorant guy actually dared to say that he would definitely be the first place among the freshmen? As a martial arts cultivator, everyone was astonishingly arrogant. Who could stand such words? Suddenly they looked at Xia Ping with unkind eyes. "Brother Xia, you're really confident." The corners of Ker's mouth twitched, feeling that the surrounding atmosphere seemed a little bad. He immediately changed the topic. "Of course, what I want to talk about isn't that, but the first benefit of joining the Jianghu sect." "Benefit? What benefit?" Xia Ping's attention was attracted by these words. The Jianghu sect has a famous forbidden area called the Jianghu Wall. Other than the disciples of the Jianghu sect, no one is allowed to enter. Even if the disciples of the Jianghu sect want to enter, they have to pay a huge price. Ker smiled slightly. "But for this place, outer sect disciples like us who have just joined have a chance to enter this forbidden area and observe the Jianghu Wall." Xia Ping blinked his eyes. "Jianghu Wall? What's that?" The Jianghu Wall is not simple. It is the traces of the martial Tao left behind by the previous almighties of the Jianghu sect. It is said that there are also the mysteries left behind by the sages after they achieved the Tao. Ker said, "Of course not everyone can see these mysteries. If you don't have enough aptitude, you'll just be in the clouds and won't be able to understand anything. However, if you have peerless talent, you can obtain great benefits from it." Chapter 1105. A few hours later, the Jianghu faction's test came to an end. Those who had passed the test stood in this public square. There were 4,000 to 5,000 of them, but compared to the huge number of examinees, there was less than 1 in 100. Those examinees who failed the test were all disheartened. They left the place and returned to the hotel. Even if they didn't want to leave, they couldn't continue staying in this place. "Alright, from now on, all of you are disciples of my Jianghu sect. You belong to our Jianghu sect. From now on, you are not allowed to kill your fellow sect members. You must be united." The chief examiner spoke in a low voice. His voice was like thunder reverberating unceasingly. It seemed to contain a spiritual pressure that resonated with the heavens and earth, transmitting into the minds of all the examinees in the public square. Immediately, all of them felt a shiver run down their spines as an enormous pressure was exerted on their bodies. "Yes." Xia Ping and the others answered loudly. "All right, begin the heavenly law blood oath," the chief examiner said in a deep voice. Xia Ping's eyes flickered. Through Corinne's words, he knew that the so-called heavenly law blood oath is the law of the universe that absolutely cannot be disobeyed. Once you make an oath, you must comply with it. Otherwise, you will certainly suffer a backlash from the law of the universe and die. Every disciple who entered a saint-level sect had to make a heavenly Tao blood oath, swearing that they would not betray the sect or violate the rules of the sect. Otherwise, they would suffer the wrath of the heavens. Therefore, in the cosmos, many saint sects were extremely united, and there were very few cases of betrayal. This was because of the existence of the heavenly oath, which firmly bound the disciples of countless sects to not betray. If the sect broke the promise first, then the disciple could not be blamed, and the heavenly Tao blood oath would not be effective. However, no matter how powerful the heavenly Tao oath was, it would still have its flaws. There were countless secret techniques in the universe, and there might be some that could circumvent the heavenly Tao blood oath. However, for most cultivators, this was a curse that they could not break free from. Of course, if they didn't do something like betraying the sect, then this heavenly blood oath would only exist in name. Therefore, many disciples didn't take this matter seriously. With the heavens as our witness, with our blood as our witness, we willingly joined the heaven and earth sect and willingly followed the rules of the heaven and earth sect. If we betray the sect, we will be struck by lightning and never be able to reincarnate. On the public square, the examinees all swore an oath. At the same time, they cut their fingers and a drop of blood essence dripped onto the ground. Boom! In the next second, a huge array formation rose up in the square. It was like a swastika symbol, and it burst out with golden light that covered a radius of over 10,000 kilometers. Drops of blood fell onto the ground and merged with the void. Suddenly, an ancient and mysterious aura came from the depths of the universe, enveloping the entire square. It seemed to resonate with the heavens and the earth, emitting the sound of the great path. After the heavenly Tao blood oath ended, all the examinees present felt that there seemed to be an additional blood-colored karma line in the depths of their souls. However, it soon disappeared without a trace, fusing into their souls. Very good. When the chief examiner saw that everyone had sworn the heavenly law oath, he instantly revealed a trace of a smile. Only by swearing the heavenly law oath can you be considered a true disciple of the Jianghu faction. Since that's the case, come with me. Whoosh! Immediately, a huge black spaceship appeared in the sky, hovering in mid-air. The black spaceship immediately produced an extremely strong suction force, sucking in all the examinees in the public square. In the next second, Xia Ping and the others disappeared from where they were, entering the interior of the spaceship. An hour later, the black spaceship flew for who knew how many kilometers and arrived at the core region of Jianghu Star. It was heavily guarded. Dong. At this moment, the black spaceship landed on an empty space. Xia Ping and the others came out from the cabin door and immediately saw a huge barrier in front of the empty space. It enveloped the surroundings tightly and was airtight. They couldn't see clearly what was inside the barrier. There were countless runes flowing in this barrier, forming many huge law chains that contained terrifying energy. It was as if any enemies dared to approach it, they would immediately suffer a lightning-like attack. Xia Ping felt that even if the moon god ship approached it, it would instantly turn into dust and disappear from the universe. I believe that some of you know what this place is. This is one of the forbidden grounds of our Jianghu faction, the place where the Jianghu wall is located. A Jianghu faction elder said in a deep voice, "This place has records of the martial path marks left behind by the various major characters of the Jianghu faction. There are even imprints of saints inside. It's incomparably precious." In the universe, many major characters from various sects had once wanted to enter this place in an attempt to observe it. However, they had to pay a great price. As new disciples of the Jianghu faction, you guys are extremely lucky to be able to obtain this fortuitous encounter. This is probably a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I hope that you guys will cherish it. Hearing this, everyone was overjoyed and their eyes were filled with agitation. They didn't expect that they would receive such great benefits right after joining the Jianghu faction. As expected, their decision to join this super sect was the right one. However, the Jianghu faction elder changed the topic. The things recorded on the Jianghu wall are incomparably profound. Even cultivators above the Golden Core realm might not be able to see anything. Therefore, the vast majority of you won't gain anything. Only those with sufficient talent will be able to gain some comprehension. Therefore, don't be too happy too early. If you guys don't have any comprehension, then you can only stay in the Jianghu wall for 2 hours. Remember this. He put out a finger. Everyone was stunned. Most probably, whether or not they would be valued by the sect depended on this. If they came out from the Jianghu wall without any comprehension, the sect would probably think that they didn't have any comprehension ability. In the future, they wouldn't receive any nurturing and would just be ordinary. The expressions of some influential disciples were extremely solemn. They had also received the news that whether or not they performed well in the Jianghu wall would determine their future in the Jianghu faction. This was because every time there was a Jianghu faction elder to observe the Jianghu wall personally and search for talented disciples. If they could catch the eye of the elder and be accepted as a personal disciple, their status would definitely rise to the heavens in a single step. They would surpass the vast majority of outer sect disciples and the treatment they received would be completely different. Therefore, they all viewed this Jianghu wall with great importance. They couldn't afford to make any mistakes. They were even more nervous than during the test earlier. Go in. The Jianghu faction elder didn't say much. He formed seals with his hands and instantly, a beam of golden light blasted onto the barrier. Dong. Instantly, a huge golden door appeared in the barrier. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Many examinees entered in a single file, entering the barrier one after another. After all the examinees entered, the door of the barrier closed, not allowing any outsiders to enter. This is the Jianghu wall? Chapter 1106. Although Xia Ping thought that it was a stone wall, in reality he didn't know what material it was made of. He only knew that it was extremely hard, probably many times harder than diamonds. This was because there were traces of a saint left on it and it carried the spiritual power of a saint. Items made of ordinary materials would probably explode in an instant, unable to withstand it at all. This stone wall was like a huge millstone. It was thousands of meters tall and more than 10 kilometers long. At first glance it was huge and lofty like a giant standing there. Dense black and white lines appeared on the stone wall. They intersected with each other, forming yin and yang, like two fish entangled together. One black, one white. One day, one earth. One yin, one yang. This seemed to represent the essence of the universe. It was like day and night, like the sky and the earth, like light and darkness, like heat and cold. They opposed each other but fused together, symbolizing the way of balance. Balance, this was the basic law of the universe. When this stone wall appeared in front of Xiaoping, he saw the intersecting lines of yin and yang, and saw the black and white pattern. He immediately felt a vast and ancient aura. Instantly, an extremely terrifying pressure came crushing down. It was like the majesty of a heavenly dragon, ruthlessly pressing on his soul, wanting to crush his entire body and make his soul collapse. Even his entire body was under great pressure, as if there was hundreds of times the gravity. Every inch of his muscles and every bone in his body was cracking, and he was about to be pressed to the ground. So painful. Xiaoping felt a splitting headache as if someone had used a hammer to hit him. This black and white millstone produced a great majesty, and he couldn't look directly at it. One must know that his soul had absorbed a large number of soul crystals, obtained the power of the soul-eating beast and the Hell Golden Crow bloodline. He had even cultivated a saint-tier cultivation technique, causing his spiritual power to be many times stronger than ordinary people. But even so, he couldn't withstand the pressure of the heaven and earth wall. One could imagine the situation of others. As expected, some examinees didn't know what was going on. When the entire heaven and earth wall appeared in their eyes, they instantly felt the world spinning. Their heads couldn't withstand such spiritual pressure at all. With a few thuds, they actually directly fell to the ground, foamed at the mouth and fainted. They probably wouldn't be able to regain consciousness in a few hours. What a fool to actually dare to look directly at the Jianghu wall. Don't you know that there are many spiritual imprints left behind on it? There's even the spiritual imprint of a saint. We can't resist it with our strength, yet we still dare to overestimate ourselves. Isn't this courting death? Someone sneered. These commoners can't be blamed. How could they have the qualifications to come into contact with such a top-notch secret? They don't know that they can only observe a portion of it and slowly comprehend it. They can't observe the entire thing. Otherwise, their brains wouldn't be able to withstand it and would explode. Now that these civilians are only unconscious, it's already a blessing in disguise. That's right. However, they have missed the opportunity to comprehend the Jianghu wall. After they regain their consciousness, they will regret that they missed this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. This is a fortuitous encounter that will never appear again. What does that have to do with us? We should hurry up and comprehend the Jianghu wall. If we don't manage to comprehend anything, we will be chased out after 2 hours. Right, ignore these idiots. Many descendants of the influential clans stopped chatting. They were all carefully observing the Jianghu wall, searching for the traces left behind on it as well as the words and pictures left behind by the Jianghu sect's almighty experts. They were trying to comprehend some of the true essence of the martial path. And at this moment, Xiaoping also felt incomparably uncomfortable. He was the same as the group of unconscious examinees. In an instant, the entire Jianghu wall was reflected in his eyes. He was being attacked by countless martial spiritual imprints on the Jianghu wall. It was as if countless almighty experts were attacking him. Even if his mental strength was extraordinary, he still couldn't withstand it. Just when he was about to faint, the world tree in the depths of his mind palace suddenly trembled. Its branches and leaves swayed and the liquid magic power in the depths of his mind palace rumbled. Rays of green light seeped into his soul. It was as if a huge tree had appeared in his soul. The roots and branches of the world tree penetrated deep into his soul, completely stabilizing his trembling soul. The mental strength that was originally attacking Xiaoping's soul was now all blasted towards the world tree. But what kind of great life form was the world tree? When it was at its peak, it was a divine tree that spanned across the entire universe. It was truly a divine object that covered the sky and covered the earth. Even if it was only a seedling now, it was still magical. Therefore, when the phantom of the world tree appeared in his soul, all the mental pressure of the Jianghu wall was blocked, as if it was absorbed by the world tree and devoured. So easy. Xiaoping suddenly breathed a sigh of relief. The huge pressure disappeared in an instant, and his body was much more relaxed. He felt the power of the Jianghu wall caressing his face. It was as if the pressure just now was just a dream. And at this moment he felt that the entire Jianghu wall seemed to be rotating. The black and white fish kept swimming, and the entire Jianghu wall seemed to be alive. Walala, suddenly, a majestic wave of information immediately poured in, like a tide, like a mountain torrent. All of it went into Xiaoping's mind. Didi, at this moment, the system's voice also came out. Host, after testing, the host has obtained a holy level martial art inheritance, called the Great Yin Yang Tablet Breaking Hand. Do you want to spend 400 million hatred points to master it? Spend. Xiaoping said immediately. Anyway, he had 28 billion hatred points on him. Even if he spent 400 million, it wouldn't be a big deal. And he got so much hatred points to enhance his strength. If he didn't spend it now, then when would he spend it? Okay, host, please receive the inheritance. The system's voice came out again. Boom, Xiaoping immediately sensed that his soul seemed to have entered the void. An old man in a white robe stood in the center of the universe. He grabbed the sun with one hand and the moon with the other, and the power of yin and yang gathered in it. Above his head was the 8 trigrams universe map, and his feet were stepping on the yin-yang 2 directions array. The black and white air currents were constantly surging, turning into 2 giant dragons across the void, roaring constantly. Dong. The old man in the white robe gently grabbed, and with a big slap of his hand, the huge planet in the void was caught by him like a ball, and he directly threw it out, instantly shattering the void. This grab and throw contained boundless profundities. This is the way of yin and yang. It's too mysterious. Xiaoping was immersed in it. The black air currents and the white air currents were entangled with each other. They were diametrically opposed, but they fused with each other, giving birth to the power of balance and terrifying attraction. Chapter 1107. At that moment, in the sky above the heaven and earth wall, dozens of old men rode on the clouds and sat in the air. Some carried long swords on their backs and sword energy surged into the heavens. They were like sword saints, and with a slight movement, they would pierce through the sky. It was as if a planet would be sliced in half by one sword. Some held a black gourd in their hands. Their faces were flushed red and they looked like they were drunk. However, the power around them seemed to have merged with heaven and earth. This natural control of power made one's heart palpitate. Some of them wore red robes, and their bodies were surrounded by scarlet flames. They were like the rulers of flames, and they were like the sun, constantly emitting terrifying heat. However, he controlled the energy in his body and didn't explode. He just wrapped it within 3 feet of his body, otherwise the 3,000 kilometers around would have turned into a sea of flames. These old men were all extremely terrifying. They were all experts in the world and were the higher-ups of the heaven and earth faction. They were elders and had high statuses. At the very least, they were at the returning true realm. How are the disciples this time? The drunk old man casually chatted. He held a black gourd in his hands and slowly shook it. There are some decent seedlings. That Rocky Kingdom 18th Prince Kur seems to have comprehended something. An old man said calmly and looked at Kur on the ground. At that moment, Kur sat on the ground and stared at the stone wall in front of him. He seemed to have comprehended something, and a phenomenon appeared behind him. His soul power shook and many green lotuses rose up. They gave off a bright light and wrapped around his body. That golden-haired kid is not bad. The red-robed old man pointed at a golden-haired teen. That golden-haired teen stood on the ground and his eyes shot out golden light. It was as if a sun rose up behind him and balls of flame shot out. Endless heat surged around him. The surrounding examinees all retreated and didn't dare to get close to a few hundred meters around him. Otherwise they would definitely be burned by the flames on his body. Apart from that, some examinees entered a state of enlightenment. Some had a ferocious bird appear behind their backs and soared into the sky. The sound they gave off could pierce through metal and stone. Some had a ferocious tiger that shook the forest. Its aura was shocking and it seemed like it could swallow 10,000 miles. Some had a whale that swam in the ocean and slapped the waves. The appearance of these phenomenons meant that they comprehended something from the heaven and earth wall and obtained huge benefits. They looked at the Qingquan wall in a daze as if they had obtained a treasure. However, the vast majority of the examinees only stared at the Qingquan wall in bewilderment. They couldn't comprehend anything at all. It was like a blind man touching an elephant. They only had blank looks on their faces. All of them were extremely anxious because 2 hours had passed. If they still hadn't comprehended anything, they would be expelled from this place, unable to continue staying in this place. If they did so, they would miss out on a huge opportunity. However, if they didn't comprehend it, they didn't comprehend it. They couldn't force it at all. It could only be said that they had no fate with the Qingquan wall, and they didn't have enough comprehension. Even if the secret technique was placed in front of them, they wouldn't be able to learn it. They're just passable. They can only be called outstanding, far from being geniuses, the old man with a long sword on his back said calmly. Not a single one of them has the potential to become a saint. Senior Yun Jian is still too strict. Even among the geniuses, how many of them can become saints? It's enough if they can become outstanding. These disciples can become the central pillars of our Jianghu faction. A white-robed old man stroked his white beard. If you don't become a saint, you're still an ant. 10,000 years later you'll still be a cup of dirt. It's not worth mentioning. The old man with a long sword on his back was expressionless. He didn't comment on the white-robed old man's words. Although that's what you say, mortals are the most common among all living beings. It's too difficult to find a seedling that can become a saint. It's something that can only be chanced upon. The white-robed old man shook his head. If it's a disciple with this kind of aptitude, it's fine even if I don't look. I'll go. The old man with a long sword on his back shook his head. He wanted to turn and leave. However, before the old man could leave, all the old men present suddenly felt an indescribable aura. The entire Jianghu wall seemed to be trembling at this moment, letting out a cry. Countless black and white lines spun wildly on the Jianghu wall, forming yin and yang symbols. It was as if there were two black and white fishes swimming about. The yin and yang currents condensed into something material, forming a resonance with the heaven and earth. Triggering the aura? It can't be. Who exactly is resonating with the Jianghu wall? He can actually trigger the Jianghu wall. Could it be that he has obtained the inheritance of the saint in the Jianghu wall? Which disciple is so monstrous that even we can't make the Jianghu wall resonate? Look, it's that young man. Many old men's bodies trembled. They immediately looked in the direction of the aura. Their gazes quickly looked down. Even the old man who originally wanted to leave stopped and looked over. That person was obviously Xia Ping. At this moment, Xia Ping had received the inheritance of the Jianghu wall. A huge aura surged into his mind. He activated this cultivation method. The essence of heaven and earth gathered, forming a huge phenomenon. Xia Ping sat cross-legged on the ground. The yin and yang arrays appeared on the ground. Above his head, the 8 trigrams Jianghu array appeared. The 2 great arrays appeared as if they were showing a world. This world also showed countless phenomena. A full moon hung in the sky, and a sun rose from the east. The essence of heaven and earth gathered at times. At other times, it disintegrated and changed. All kinds of flying insects and beasts, as well as all kinds of rare birds and beasts, and even ancient mutants, appeared. This world was also black and white like the 2 extremes of yin and yang. They formed the Jianghu wall and turned into a giant millstone. It can't be. He can actually activate the saint's inheritance and resonate with the saint's spiritual imprint. Is this kid trying to defy the heavens? Could he have studied the entire Jianghu wall? The red-robed old man widened his eyes. Impossible. How can a mere junior at the Purple Mansion realm be able to study the entire Jianghu wall? Isn't he afraid that his brain will be crushed and he will become an idiot? The white-robed old man shook his head. The problem is, if he didn't study the entire Jianghu wall, how can he do such a thing? I can only say that this kid is a monster, an unparalleled monster. Such a phenomenon is too shocking. What kind of absolute art did he obtain? Many of the elders were astonished. Even though they had seen many geniuses before, they had never seen such a phenomenon. What kind of inheritance did he receive? If I didn't guess wrongly, it should be the great yin-yang tablet breaking hand. The old man with the long sword on his back said in a deep voice. What? The old men present all widened their eyes and simply didn't dare to believe it. It can't be, right? Isn't this the saint-class absolute art that our Jianghu sect's old ancestor left behind? It has been lost for 100,000 years. Could it be that it is going to reappear in the world today? More than 10 elders couldn't suppress the excitement in their hearts. Chapter 1108. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. In the blink of an eye, dozens of figures appeared above the universe wall silently. Who was it that actually obtained the ancestor's inheritance? He got the great yin-yang tablet breaking palm? These figures were all elders of the Jianghu sect, and all of them had unfathomable cultivation bases. They all impatiently asked. This was because the great yin-yang heaven and earth hand was a unique skill of the founder of the heaven and earth sect, Heaven and Earth Taoist. However, this unique skill was not passed down and was placed on the heaven and earth wall. Ever since Heaven and Earth Taoist left the Heaven and Earth sect and entered the depths of the universe in search of a breakthrough opportunity, 100,000 years had passed. However, there had been no news from Heaven and Earth Taoist. Some people said that Heaven and Earth Taoist was already dead and had fallen in the impasse of the universe. There were also people who said that he didn't die, but that he was trapped in some place and couldn't get out. In short, Heaven and Earth Taoist had disappeared for a long time and hadn't appeared in the Heaven and Earth faction for a long time. Therefore, the Heaven and Earth faction also thought that this founding ancestor might have died. Therefore, with the disappearance of the Heaven and Earth Taoist, this unique skill was also lost, and no one in the Heaven and Earth sect obtained it. But now, a new disciple had actually obtained the inheritance on the Chenghuan wall and obtained the great yin-yang steel-breaking hand. This immediately alarmed many important figures in the sect. They all rushed over wanting to know what kind of monster it was. Is it this kid? There were elders who immediately noticed Xia Ping, because the disturbance from Xia Ping's body was just too great. All types of heaven and earth phenomena appeared, resonating with the heaven and earth wall, incomparably mystical. He really got the sacred absolute art, the great yin-yang tablet breaking hand. It said that Ancestor Chenghuan created this ultimate art that shook the universe. With a grab and a throw, the power of yin and yang fused together. Even sages couldn't dodge it. They were caught and thrown to their deaths, their souls torn apart. In the past, there were countless geniuses who tried to comprehend the heaven and earth wall. There were even sages. However, none of them managed to obtain the great yin-yang tablet smashing hand. I didn't expect this young disciple to obtain it. Most likely, it's not just because of one's comprehension ability. It's also because of one's fate. If one wasn't fated with the Chenghuan sect, he definitely wouldn't have been acknowledged by the Chenghuan sect and obtained the legacy. To be able to withstand the mental pressure of the heaven and earth wall and completely accept the entire martial arts inheritance, one can imagine the strength of this young disciple's soul. It is definitely extraordinary. Looks like our heaven and earth sect has another incredible disciple. Many elders clicked their tongues in admiration, and all of them were extremely happy. None of them would complain about having too many monstrous geniuses. If the Chenghuan sect had another powerful sage, the benefits would be unimaginable. But where did this disciple come from? Which kingdom, or which family's descendant are you from? An elder asked, wishing to know his true identity. Someone immediately said, I just checked. His name is Xia Ping and there's very little information on him. He just arrived at Chenghuan planet today, and he even just registered as a resident of our Chenghuan sect. He has never appeared in the Chenghuan faction's territory before. For such a monstrous genius, it was only natural that they would obtain his information as soon as possible. And according to the intelligence, he's the only one piloting the spaceship. He doesn't have any companions with him. The spaceship is called the Moon God. Although it's been modified by an expert, it's still very primitive. Interesting. He's actually not someone from our Cosmos faction that governs the 6 great starfields. Could he be from another starfield? Right now there are 2 possibilities. The first is that he might be the direct descendant of an ancient family, and he's now out in the world to temper himself. That's why he hasn't appeared in other places. The second possibility is that he was born on a primitive planet and unintentionally obtained a transportation tool to head into the universe. He's a rookie that just arrived in the universe, so he didn't leave any information in other places. These elders were constantly analyzing Xia Ping's words, trying to figure out his true identity. No matter which possibility it is, he swore a heavenly blood oath. It's impossible for him to betray our Chenghuan sect, so he's a disciple of our Chenghuan sect. I like this brat a lot, so why don't he become my disciple? Don't fight with me for him. The old man with the sword was very satisfied and immediately wanted to take Xia Ping as his disciple. Scram. A chubby old man immediately cursed. You have 3,000 disciples, so why do you need so many disciples? Pity me, I only have 300. I should take him as my disciple the most. He opposed the old man with the sword, not backing down at all. The fact that I have 3,000 disciples means that I'm good at teaching. He can only grow up under me, but if he's under you, he'll be destroyed. Do you understand? The old man with the sword spoke in disdain. Shameless. In terms of teaching ability, none of my disciples are weaker than you. Do you want to spar with me? The chubby old man was like a cat that had its tail stepped on. He immediately jumped up. Enough. Senior brothers, there's no need to fight. Why ruin the harmony for a disciple? From junior brother's point of view, this young disciple is very suitable to join my sect. He can be considered as sharing some of the pressure for the 2 of you. There's no need to trouble the 2 of you. Scram, a drunkard like you dares to snatch a disciple from senior brother? Although I have many disciples, 1 or 2 more won't make me feel any pressure. If you want to snatch a disciple from senior brother, you're still 30,000 years away. You can't say that. Senior brother, you're an expert in the way of the sword, but this disciple has comprehended the great Yin-Yang tablet smashing hand. It belongs to the way of the fist. Aren't you misleading him by teaching him? That's right, senior brother. I'm not talented. I've immersed myself in the way of the fist for 9,877 years. It's more than enough to teach a young junior. Others don't fight with me. Bullshit. You've all learned martial arts. What fist or sword? When you reach a high level, they're all different paths that lead to the same goal. What is a weapon? The so-called weapon is just an extension of the body. In fact, it's also a part of the body. Fist techniques are also sword techniques. They're essentially the same. They're all killing methods. Senior brother, you're clearly being shameless by saying that. So what if I'm shameless? Letting this disciple go to you is a reckless waste of resources and misleading him. Many elders argued until their faces were red and their spittle flew everywhere. They almost lost their temper and started fighting. Everyone knew how talented a person who could obtain the sage's inheritance from the heaven and earth wall and comprehend the great Yin-Yang tablet smashing hand was. It was very likely that he would become a sage. If they didn't accept such a disciple as their sect, were they supposed to let him go? Enough, stop arguing. I want this disciple. You can't fight with me. Suddenly, an old voice rang out from the hearts of all the elders, causing their souls to tremble. It was as if heavens might had descended. Whoosh. Chapter 1109. Ancestor. Many elders were shocked when they saw the white-robed old man. They recognized him as one of the 3 remaining sages of Jianghu's sect, Dark North Sage. The other 2 sages were Blazing Sun Sage and Snowy Ocean Sage. It was precisely because of these 3 sages that the Jianghu sect was like the sun in the sky, ruling over the 6 great starfields. Moreover, the Jianghu sect was becoming more and more prosperous with each passing day. Its influence was still continuously expanding into the distance, becoming even stronger. Facing such a sage, they all bowed respectfully, not daring to overstep their boundaries. Ancestor, why did you come here? An elder asked doubtfully. The 3 sages of Jianghu sect were either in seclusion or out adventuring. They rarely appeared in the sect. It was even more impossible for them to accept a disciple like this. Not to mention, after becoming a sage, their strength would be extraordinary and their vision would be different from that of ordinary people. No matter how monstrous a genius was, it would be difficult for a sage to take a fancy to him. It was too difficult to become a disciple of a sage. Not to mention that Dark North Sage was an eccentric person. He basically didn't have any disciples. Even if someone persuaded him to accept a few disciples as his inheritors, he rejected them all. But now, Dark North Sage actually appeared and wanted to accept this young man as his disciple. This was unprecedented for Jianghu's sect. Each and every one of them was stunned. I was in seclusion just now and suddenly felt that someone had comprehended the great Yin-Yang steel smashing hand left behind by senior brother Jianghu. So I came out to check it out. Dark North Sage stood with his hands behind his back and said, Senior brother Jianghu has done me a great favor. He might have fallen now, but his inheritance cannot be lost in Jianghu's sect. So, I swear that I will only accept disciples if someone comprehended the great Yin-Yang steel smashing hand in the Jianghu wall. Otherwise, I will never accept disciples in my life. He narrated the cause of the matter in detail. I see. Many elders were enlightened. They finally understood why Dark North Sage didn't have any disciples. Even though the other 2 sages tried to persuade him, he didn't change his mind. It turned out that there was such a secret. Now, I want to accept this young man as my disciple. Do you have any objections? Dark North Sage looked at them with a domineering expression. No. Of course not. Since Ancestor wants to accept this young man as his disciple, how would we dare to compete? That's right, if the old Ancestor had said so earlier, we would have given it up already. Old Ancestor taking the initiative to recruit disciples is simply the greatest fortune of our Jianghu sect. We will definitely not snatch him away. Many elders spoke up. The saint had personally said that he wanted to take this young man as his disciple. Which elder would have the guts to stop him? Wasn't that courting death? Moreover, these words were spoken from the bottom of their hearts. If the sage was willing to personally teach his disciple, then none of them could compete with him. This was the best outcome. And that's good. Xia Ping will be my disciple then. Dark North Saint nodded, stroking his white beard in satisfaction. As these people conversed, the matter of Xia Ping becoming the disciple of Dark North Sage was decided. 2 hours later, Xia Ping slowly woke up. At this moment, he had completely accepted the martial arts inheritance and completely learned this sacred unique skill, Great Yin Yang Tablet Breaking Hand. As expected of a sacred unique skill that cost 400 million hatred points, is really too mysterious. Xia Ping's eyes lit up. He was immersed in the comprehension of the Great Yin Yang Tablet Breaking Hand. This unique skill used the power of Yin and Yang as its foundation. The two powers were different from each other, but they balanced each other, forming a wonderful fusion. One hard, one soft. One Yin, one Yang. When this unique skill was displayed, two completely different powers erupted in an instant, forming a terrifying attractive force that sucked the enemy in, making it impossible for them to escape. It could be said that once the enemy was caught by the Great Yin Yang Tablet Breaking Hand, they would not be far from death. The more the enemy struggled, the faster they would die. They would be crushed into pieces in the vortex. Xia Ping knew that he had obtained a powerful martial art this time. It was not inferior to the Yang God Fist that he had obtained before. And suddenly he sensed a powerful aura coming from afar. He raised his head and immediately saw dozens of old men in the air. They all descended from the sky and came near Xia Ping. At this moment, the other examinees also woke up from the comprehension of the Jianghu wall. However, more than 90% of the examinees had been eliminated because they could not comprehend anything in the Jianghu wall. Although these examinees were unwilling, there was nothing they could do. After all, the opportunity was equal. The Jianghu sect also treated everyone equally. Everyone had a chance to comprehend. However, because their comprehension was not good enough, they could not get any benefits and could not blame others. What's going on? Why did so many people suddenly appear? Oh my God, these are the elders of the Jianghu sect. They are the real top big shots. Yes, I once visited the Jianghu sect with the elders of my family and met one of the elders. These elders are the real big shots of the 6 major star fields. They have great power. A word from them is enough to shake countless planets. It's said that if one has an outstanding performance in the Jianghu wall, the elders will take a liking to them and they will become their disciples. Yes, I've also heard about this from the elders of my family. They said that if I perform well in the Jianghu wall, I would definitely be able to ascend to the heavens in a single step and my status in the clan would also rise greatly. Now that so many elders appeared at the same time, they must want to recruit us as their disciples. I wonder which person's luck is so good that the elders took a liking to them. Is there even a need to ask? It must be the princes of our country or the feudal vassals, or the descendants of the great clans. As for those lowly commoners, how can they compare to us? That's true, these commoners are just supporting characters. These examinees discussed. All of them puffed out their chests and had agitated expressions. They were like roosters that had been injected with chicken blood, wanting nothing more than to stand out from the crowd. All the elders' gazes were gathered on them. This was especially so for those descendants of the influential clans. They all had arrogant looks on their faces. They felt that these elders must have taken a liking to their outstanding aptitudes and wanted to recruit them as disciples. As for those country bumpkins who came from who knew where, how could they compare to them, the nobles with noble bloodlines? There was no need to even think about it. These commoners were definitely the green leaves that could serve as a foil to show off their strength, a stepping stone. When the commoners in the surroundings heard these words, their countenances were extremely unsightly. They clenched their fists tightly, feeling very unwilling to accept this. However, the words of these descendants of the influential clans weren't wrong. Regardless of aptitude or resources, the disparity between the two sides was too great. If they were the elders of the Jianghu sect, they would definitely choose the descendants of the influential clans with outstanding aptitudes. Why would they choose mediocre commoners? Chapter 11:10. MHM? Xia Ping didn't care about the discussions of the surrounding examinees. When he saw a white-robed old man appearing before him, he instantly felt a huge change in the world. The surrounding air seemed to have solidified. It was like with the white-robed old man as the center, the area within a radius of several tens of thousands of miles transformed into a unique domain world, separated from the real world. How powerful! Xia Ping was shocked. This white-robed old man was the most powerful living being he had ever seen. It was like the innate nature of life was completely different. As long as the other party breathed out, he would be reduced to ashes. Careful, this is a sage. Corinne transmitted his voice to Xia Ping. However, he only spoke a single sentence and no longer showed himself. He was afraid that the connection between him and Xia Ping would be discovered by this white-robed old man. Because when one reached the sage realm, they would be able to faintly sense the innate nature of the world. It was simply impossible to play tricks under the eyes of a sage. Sage. Xia Ping's eyes gleamed. It was unknown how many times he had heard Corinne talking about the legends of sages. Sages were the strongest experts in the universe, existences that could destroy planets with a single hand. They could be said to be living gods. But this was the first time he saw a living sage appearing before him. Initially, he thought that he was very far away from being a sage. Who would have thought that he was no longer an existence that was extremely far away from him? This old man's Dao name is Dark North. The white-robed old man stared at Xia Ping and spoke, "I can temporarily be considered a grand elder of the Jianghu sect. Are you willing to become my eldest disciple?" What? As the sound of his voice rang out, all the disciples of the Jianghu sect were shocked. This was especially so for those descendants of nobles and aristocrats. All of them were so frightened that they were like wooden chickens, completely dumbfounded. In the 6-star regions, even the most ignorant person would know that the Jianghu sect had 3 great sages. They could be said to be existences akin to rulers and were also the supreme experts of the Jianghu sect. One of them was none other than the Dark North Saint. One could say that in the Jianghu sect, other than the Dark North Saint, no one else would dare to call themselves Dark North. If not, this would be considered a taboo and the consequences would be dire. Without a doubt, this white-robed old man was none other than the famous Dark North Saint. But such a powerful sage actually came here directly, clearly wanting to recruit Xia Ping as his eldest disciple. They simply didn't dare to believe their ears. Eldest disciple? A disciple of a sage. Hearing this, Xia Ping's eyes lit up. If he could become a disciple of a sage, it would be equivalent to finding a great backer, a super golden thigh. He would be able to do whatever he wanted in the Jianghu sect. At that time, who would dare to offend him? Rejecting the other party was the stupidest thing to do. Corinne, who was hiding beside Xia Ping, was also stunned. He didn't expect such a thing to happen. He had just joined the Jianghu sect, but he actually became a sage's disciple. Although it had long known that it would not be a problem for Xia Ping to become a disciple of a sage given his aptitude, it did not expect this to happen so soon. After all, sages had to attend to a myriad of affairs every day and would not usually appear in the sect. To become a disciple of a sage, one had to be lucky. According to its expectations, becoming a disciple of an elder of the sect was already not bad. Who would have thought that such a thing would happen? The sage had directly descended and wanted to take Xia Ping as a disciple. Disciple is willing. Xia Ping immediately cupped his hands and performed a disciple's greeting. Very good. Follow me. Dark North Saint smiled, revealing a rare smile. It was like a spring breeze, as if he was very satisfied with Xia Ping's answer. With a swoosh, he waved his hand and a gentle power wrapped around Xia Ping's body. In the next second, the two of them disappeared from the spot and directly left this place. After that, the elders present also chose over 10 people with outstanding aptitudes. Among them was Kor, and they accepted these people as disciples. Although their treatment could not be compared to Xia Ping's, it was still a great fortuitous encounter. As for the others who were not favored by the elders, they could only stay on the spot like abandoned pets. After all the elders left, only then did these people dare to speak. Impossible. A rich and powerful disciple broke down in disbelief. I have outstanding aptitude and am said to be a once-in-a-century genius in my family. To think that no elder took a liking to me and accepted me as a disciple. Instead, they took a liking to a country bumpkin who came from who knows where, a commoner with a lowly bloodline. This must be a joke. He was unable to accept such a thing. In his hometown, he was a once-in-a-century genius who was invincible. This made him extremely confident that he would become an influential figure once he entered the Jianghu sect. He thought that a big shot would take a liking to him and he would become the final disciple. Who knew that no one took a liking to him at all? Instead, the people he looked down on all became the disciples of the elders. Even that despicable, arrogant commoner Xia Ping actually became the disciple of a saint, rising to the heavens in a single step. How could he accept such a ridiculous thing? That's right, why? Forget about Kor and the others. After all, they are descendants of the royal family and have a noble bloodline. Some of them came from ancient families with shocking legacies. It's understandable that the elders took a liking to them, but what qualifications does that Xia Ping have? That's right, he actually caught the eye of a saint and was personally taken in as a disciple, becoming the final disciple. This is too laughable, I thought that I was dreaming. Many rich and powerful disciples were so jealous that their intestines turned green. A commoner that they looked down on actually became the disciple of a saint, rising to the heavens in a single step. One had to know what a saint's disciple was. The so-called saint was a supreme existence in the star domain. They were like emperors, and with a single command billions of planets would tremble. They governed the lives of billions of people. The disciples of a saint were princes, and the final disciple was the crown prince who had the right to inherit. Their status was almost equal to the elders of the heaven and earth sect, or even higher to a certain extent. Now, this commoner suddenly became the disciple of a saint, becoming the crown prince who was above them. One could imagine how unbalanced their hearts were right now. They even had the urge to kill. I heard that the Dark North Saint has never taken in a disciple before and his standards are extremely high. This brat actually caught the eye of the Dark North Saint. Could it be that the Dark North Saint is blind? Someone cursed, feeling very unconvinced. He felt that his aptitude was extremely high and he could comprehend the profoundness of the martial path in the heaven and earth wall. However, that saint was blind and didn't take a liking to him. Instead, he took a liking to the commoner Xiaoping. This was too unfair. Shut up, you actually dare to talk about a saint. Do you want to die? If you offend a saint, your entire family will be exterminated. Someone immediately warned. That person quickly shut his mouth, his face turning pale from fright. If those words just now were to spread, even dying 100 times wouldn't be enough. No matter what, he has become the disciple of a saint. From now on, he will rise to the heavens in a single step, like a carp leaping over the dragon's gate. He is no longer a major character that we can provoke. The expression of a rich and powerful disciple was extremely unsightly. Now that Xiaoping had become the disciple of a saint, his authority was monstrous. Even if he didn't have any authority, his future was boundless. If he continued to say a word, it was unknown how many major powers would take action to deal with them. Their goal was to curry favor with Xiaoping. Before this, they still wanted to kill Xiaoping, but now it was already a blessing that they didn't die because of Xiaoping's revenge. In fact, in order to avoid trouble, their respective clans might directly expel them from their clans to avoid implicating themselves. Chapter 11:11. On the highest mountain in Jianghu Star was Dark North Saint's residence. This place was a forbidden area. Without the permission of the saint, anyone who entered would die. At this moment, Xiaoping followed Dark North Saint to the residence. Dark North Saint was sitting on the jade bed with Xiaoping standing next to him. The person I admire the most in my life is senior brother Jianghu. He is my benefactor. Dark North Saint said in a deep voice, I once swore that unless someone obtained senior brother Jianghu's inheritance, I would never accept a disciple. That's why I still don't have a disciple. Now that you have obtained senior brother Jianghu's inheritance and great yin-yang tablet smashing hand, you have proved your talent in martial arts. That's why I want to accept you as my disciple. Xiaoping didn't speak and continued to listen quietly. He didn't find it strange that Dark North Saint knew that he had comprehended great yin-yang tablet smashing hand. After all, Jianghu Wall was a treasure belonging to Jianghu sect. Remember, this great yin-yang tablet smashing hand is one of the best techniques in Jianghu sect. Dark North Saint said, this is our sect's top secret. Without the sect's permission, you must not leak this technique and teach it to others. His tone was very strict. Disciple understands. Xiaoping nodded. He also knew that this was the sect's secret technique. If it was leaked to the enemy, it would definitely bring a huge disaster to the sect. If the enemy were to thoroughly study his moves, he would be in danger. Since you have joined Jianghu sect, you should know some rules. Dark North Saint said, in Jianghu sect, if you want to learn top techniques and divine abilities, you can't get them for free. You need yin-yang pill to exchange for them. The so-called yin-yang pill was the unique pill of Jianghu sect. It was refined by the divine tool yin-yang pill refining cauldron and countless precious medicinal materials. Taking one yin-yang pill could save a cultivator 3 months of spiritual power. If one could get a large number of yin-yang pills, then who knew how much time could be saved? Basically, every disciple of Jianghu sect hoped to get yin-yang pill. After all, in the outside world, even if one had money, they couldn't buy it. I know. While waiting for the assessment to end, Corinne had already told him some basic knowledge about Jianghu faction, so he was very clear about this general knowledge. If he wanted to exchange for precious martial arts techniques in the Heaven and Earth faction, he would need a large number of yin and yang pills. If he wanted to obtain precious treasures, he would also need yin and yang pills. As for the yin-yang pill, it was a reward bestowed by the sect to the disciples. For example, if the disciples completed the sect's missions, they would receive a large number of yin and yang pills as a reward. If he ascended to the fulfillment realm, he would be rewarded with the yin-yang pill. Ascending to the transcendent realm would also be bestowed with the yin and yang pill. Every time a disciple advanced to a higher realm, the sect would give them a corresponding reward. Or, if they obtained some treasures and offered them to the sect, they would be rewarded with yin and yang pills. In short, the more outstanding one's performance was and the more contributions one made to the sect, the more yin and yang pills the sect would bestow upon one. Everything was very fair. It all depended on one's performance. If you had enough yin and yang pills, you would be able to learn all the precious techniques in the Heaven and Earth sect. This was also why the Heaven and Earth sect attracted countless people. Originally, an ordinary disciple could get 1 yin and yang pill, and an elder's disciple could get 10 yin and yang pills. But as this old man's disciple, the treatment is naturally different. You can get 100 yin and yang pills. Dark North Saint said, if you can ascend to the fulfillment realm, you can get 1,000, and the transcendent realm can get 10,000. Every time you ascend to a higher realm, you can get 10 times the reward of an elder's disciple. Xia Ping's heart palpitated when he heard this. Sure enough, becoming a saint's disciple had great benefits. Just the initial reward alone was far beyond that of an ordinary person. It was simply not something others could compare to. One had to know that an ordinary outer disciple could only get 1 yin and yang pill. This amount of yin and yang pills was simply not enough to exchange for precious cultivation techniques, so they had to painstakingly complete the missions issued by the sect. Sometimes, they needed a whole year or even several years to accumulate enough yin and yang pills to exchange for the cultivation techniques they needed. Of course, although this situation looked very bitter, it was many times better than those who couldn't join the Heaven and Earth sect. After all, these cultivation techniques couldn't be bought in the outside world even if one had money. They were secret techniques that couldn't be touched at all. At least in the Heaven and Earth sect, they had hope of becoming stronger. But compared to Xia Ping's treatment, it was far from it. There is a Heaven and Earth Rui technique here. It is our sect's Qi cultivation technique. Basically, every disciple will get one. If your previous internal technique isn't strong enough, you can switch to this one. But if you think it's not necessary, you can choose not to cultivate it. Dark North Saint continued. As for other martial arts, sword techniques, secret techniques, etc., you can go to Heaven and Earth sect's scripture library to exchange for them. If you don't know anything, you can ask me. Remember, in the Heaven and Earth sect, even if you are my disciple, it doesn't mean that you can sleep peacefully. You have to use your own strength to fight for everything. Apart from this, I won't help you, understand? He looked at Xia Ping seriously. Understood, master. Xia Ping cupped his hands. He didn't need anything else but fairness. As long as it was a fair environment, he wasn't afraid of competing with others. But if someone dared to bully him, then he couldn't be blamed. With that, he wanted to leave. Wait. Dark North Saint seemed to have thought of something and called out to Xia Ping, is your spiritual power stronger than ordinary people? Did you have some fortuitous encounter? Yes, when I was young, I did have a fortuitous encounter. I ate a mysterious spirit medicine which caused my spiritual power to be naturally strong. It's at least 10 times stronger than ordinary people. Xia Ping said half-truthfully. 10 times stronger than ordinary people? You are indeed talented. No wonder you can withstand the spiritual pressure of the Heaven and Earth wall. Dark North Saint revealed a look of understanding. I happen to have a spiritual secret technique on me. I found it in some ancient ruins when I was young. It's not considered the sect's property, so you can take it and practice it. It's more suitable for people with naturally strong spiritual power. He tossed out a secret manual. Xia Ping took it and looked at it. There were a few old and simple golden words on it. Lion Vajra seal. Chapter 11-12. At this moment, within the quiet room, Xia Ping took out a white porcelain bottle. With a wave of his hand, 5 or 6 yin and yang pills immediately flew out and entered his mouth. As soon as it entered his mouth, the yin and yang pills immediately melted, transforming into liquid that flowed down his throat. Finally, it entered his Dantian sea of energy, where it was rapidly refined. Immediately, black and white energy surged out from the depths of his sea of energy. This was pure yin energy and pure yang energy. These two energies were like two small black and white dragons, spreading through Xiaoping's countless meridians and entering every corner of his body, strengthening every single cell in his body. Comfortable. Xiaoping felt his body warm, as though every single cell in his body was being nourished by life energy. Black and white energy flowed around his body. Finally, these energies all surged into the depths of his Zifu. While within the Zifu, the ocean of Dharma power was calm and tranquil, as though it was the eve of a storm. At this moment, the entire Zifu started to tremble. Like a flood, energy rushed into his body from the depths of his body. Then it rapidly transformed into majestic Dharma power. The ocean of Dharma power continued to expand in all directions. As Xiaoping operated the pure yang immortal incantation, the Zifu space gradually expanded, and the Dharma power also increased rapidly. Boom! Above the ocean, the sun rose from the east. A huge fireball hung high in the sky, spinning crazily. It also caused the entire ocean of Dharma power to surge, creating a whirlpool. As the ocean of Dharma power spun, the Zifu space expanded bit by bit, as though it was constantly excavating more space, causing the Zifu space to expand. Dong. All of a sudden, Xiaoping's body shuddered. He instantly felt that he had broken through the barrier. The entire Zifu space suddenly opened up, and its surface area had doubled. It was now 400 kilometers in diameter. Late stage of Zifu realm. I finally advanced. Xiaoping's eyes revealed a trace of radiance. He was originally at the peak of the mid-stage of the Zifu realm, and he was just a step away from the late stage of the Zifu realm. Now that he had consumed 5 or 6 yin-yang elixirs, it was equivalent to taking a step towards the breakthrough. Therefore he advanced to the late stage of the Zifu realm effortlessly. But Xiaoping didn't stop and continued to consume the yin-yang elixirs to strengthen his body's Dharma power. In the Zifu realm, there was basically no bottleneck. To most of the cultivators, the most difficult thing was to absorb the heaven and earth essence force and transform it into Dharma power. If there wasn't any external assistance, it would require at least 100 years before there was a chance to break through. It was a painstaking effort. But if there was the help of elixirs, it would save countless years of cultivation. 10 elixirs, 20 elixirs, 30 elixirs. As Xiaoping consumed the yin-yang elixirs one after another, a massive amount of energy surged in. The Zifu realm, which was originally expanded by 1-fold, was now filled up by the Dharma power. In the sky of the Zifu realm, there was a huge patch of dark clouds which accumulated boundless energy. After being purified by the pure yang immortal technique, the energy was transformed into Dharma power and condensed into raindrops. Splash! These Dharma power raindrops fell onto the sea, making the sea water even more abundant. With the transformation of the pure yang immortal technique, the Dharma power became even purer, and the sea water became even deeper. What's more, the 5-elemental liquid that was originally stored in his body, which had yet to be completely refined, was now refined and transformed into a huge amount of Dharma power that surged into the Zifu realm. Dong. When Xiaoping consumed a total of 100 yin-yang elixirs, the entire Zifu realm shook. The Dharma power had almost filled up the entire Zifu realm, and it had already reached the perfected stage. Peak stage of the Zifu realm. Xiaoping immediately knew that he had already reached the peak stage of the Zifu realm. He was just a step away from advancing to the fulfillment realm and reaching a new realm. Within the Zifu realm, the Dharma power had already reached the limit of the Zifu realm and was basically unable to be improved. The Dharma power in the Zifu realm that had a diameter of 400 kilometers made him feel unprecedentedly powerful. In the Zifu realm, there was probably no one who could compete with Xiaoping in terms of Dharma power. Just by relying on strength alone, he could flatten 8 mountains with a single punch. The effect of this yin-yang elixir is really not bad. It is worthy of being the exclusive elixir of the Jianghu sect. The effect of condensing Dharma power is really too good. It can save at least a few decades of cultivation time. Xiaoping praised. He had seen many elixirs in the cloud realm, but he had never seen an elixir with such an excellent effect like the yin-yang elixir. He reckoned that it wasn't just a matter of the precious herbs, but more importantly, the method of refining the elixir. A Saint-class sect like the Jianghu sect had already reached the acme of perfection in refining elixirs. They wouldn't waste much of the medicinal properties when refining the herbs. Even the fusion of different spiritual herbs and the elixir formula had reached an extremely perfect level. The medicinal properties of the elixir could be brought into full play. It was not something that the crude alchemy methods in the cloud realm could compare to. If the yin-yang elixir could appear in the cloud realm, there would be at least 10 times more divine realm cultivators than there were now. This was the importance of elixirs to cultivators. Although I used 100 yin-yang elixirs to raise my cultivation to the late stage of the Purple Palace realm, it's not that easy to raise it from the late stage to the early stage of the fulfillment realm. A mere 100 won't be enough. Xia Ping's eyes sparkled. The biggest change in advancing to the fulfillment realm was the transformation of one's mental strength. It would transform one's mental strength to the level of divine sense. Once one reached the divine sense realm, he would be able to control his transcendence energy more freely. It would be like controlling one's fingers and arms. He would be able to use his transcendence energy to make all kinds of transformations and condense 18 types of weapons. It was more than a few times stronger than the Purple Palace realm. Moreover, if one's mental strength reached the divine sense realm, he would have the power to interfere with the material world. He would be able to use his divine sense to attack the enemy and even create illusions. Of course, the divine sense power of the fulfillment realm was not considered powerful. An ordinary fulfillment realm cultivator would only be able to affect others slightly and cause them to be dazed for a moment. But if it was a more powerful cultivator, one look would be enough to kill the enemy. If I can get more yin-yang elixirs, I won't have to waste time on the process of condensing transcendence energy. Xia Ping clenched his fist. He felt that the yin-yang elixir was really good for his cultivation. If he could get more yin-yang elixirs, he would definitely improve at a godly speed. Moreover, if he wanted to break through to the fulfillment realm, he would need more yin-yang elixirs to assist him. Chapter 11-13. At this time, the news of the Dark North Saint recruiting a disciple quickly spread throughout the universe, especially to the many saint-level sects that were close to the Dark North Saint. They quickly received this shocking news. First, the 6 starfields under the Dark North Saint's jurisdiction were shaken. It became the headline of the day and was broadcasted on the evening news, informing all the people of this news. Oh my God, the Dark North Saint is actually recruiting a disciple. How many years has it been since something like this happened? From what I remember, it has been at least 1,000 years since they last recruited a disciple. This is really rare. I heard that this time, the Dark North Saint is personally recruiting a disciple. That person is called Xia Ping. Xia Ping? What's his background? Is he the descendant of some great clan or the crown prince of some kingdom? I'm not sure. He's very mysterious. The Dark North Saint only gave him a name. No one knows his exact background. That's right, he seems to have appeared out of nowhere. I've never heard of his name before. He's not a young genius who has long been famous in the 6 starfields. He might be a commoner. Really? How can a commoner have the talent to be chosen by a saint? However, since he was accepted as a disciple by the Dark North Saint, he must have some impressive abilities. If our Dark North Saint has another saint, we'll really be rich. Countless people were discussing this matter with great interest. After all, there were countless planets and trillions of people in the 6 starfields. Only 3 saints had appeared. Moreover, the 3 saints had only recruited a few disciples. This number was even rarer than a panda. This was equivalent to the crown prince of the 6 starfields, the seedlings of future saints. Therefore, they were all very concerned about the disciples of the saints, just like how they would care about the news of the royal family. For ordinary people, this was just gossip. However, for the ancient clans and the royal families of the 6 starfields, it was a huge matter. It was obvious that the Dark North Saint would have another powerful force. Even if Xia Ping was unwilling, countless people would flock to him and curry favor with him. After all, this was the disciple of the famous Dark North Saint. It was said that he had extremely high standards and had never accepted a single disciple. But now he had actually recruited a disciple. How could this not attract the attention of others? What kind of genius could make the Dark North Saint personally accept him as a disciple? Investigate. Investigate immediately. Find out what kind of background this Xia Ping has. That's right. Hurry up and find out his 18 generations of ancestors. See what kind of relationships he has, where he was born, what kind of experiences he had growing up, and how he treats people. Yes, find out what he likes and dislikes. This is very important and urgent. Stop everything else and focus on finding information on Xia Ping. Throughout the 6 major star areas, countless underground intelligence organizations began to operate, trying to find out Xia Ping's identity, origin, family background, interpersonal relationships, growth experience, and so on. They treated this new disciple of the sage with caution. Even if Xia Ping was only a Violet Palace realm cultivator now, he would only be cannon fodder in the universe. But what about 10 years or 100 years later? If he didn't die, he would definitely become a great figure that couldn't be underestimated. After all, how could a genius who had caught the eye of a sage be ordinary? Everything had to be prepared for a rainy day. Once Xiaoping grew up, he would definitely become a force that could shake the 6 major star fields. If they chose the wrong side, they would most likely die. Everything was important and couldn't be ignored. Unfortunately, no matter how they investigated, they couldn't find any traces of Xiaoping. It was as if he had appeared out of thin air. There were no clues at all. After all, Xiaoping came from a barbarian planet and had never been to the 6 major star fields. Naturally, they didn't have any information on him. This situation worried many intelligence agents. As for the nearby Qingquan sect, such as the Lingyun sect and other same-class sects, they also received this news. A disciple of a sage had appeared. They had no choice but to pay attention to it. Interesting. That stubborn Dark North Saint actually wanted to recruit a disciple. This is really strange. I wonder what kind of aptitude this disciple has for Dark North Saint to personally accept him as a disciple. His aptitude should be all right. Otherwise, Dark North Saint wouldn't have accepted him as a disciple. However, it won't be so easy to become a sage. Of course, no matter how monstrous one's aptitude is, this old man has seen them before. However, to become a sage requires luck, aptitude, and great willpower. These factors are indispensable. It seems like the younger generation is surging like the wind and clouds. Another powerful opponent has appeared. This is an era of great competition. Geniuses are as common as clouds and monstrous as rain. However, only such a great era can give birth to a powerful sage. Let's pay attention to him. I hope he doesn't die along the way. Many almighties only paid a little attention to him before losing interest. After all, he was just a junior. Even if he had some aptitude, he wasn't strong enough. He wouldn't be able to enter their eyes for now. The prodigies of many sects also received the news very quickly. Xiaoping? What's his background? I'm not sure. I heard he's a commoner. If he's accepted as a disciple of a sage, he's no longer a commoner. That's true. However, he's only at the Purple Palace realm. He's just a kid. He won't be a threat for now. So what if he's accepted as a disciple of a sage? On the path of cultivation, he still has to rely on himself. Having a good master doesn't mean he'll have a good future. There are many disciples of sages who have fallen in the universe. That's right. We should focus on our own cultivation. It won't be too late to pay attention to him when he reaches our position. Many prodigies from various sects were dismissive. They were all proud people with exceptional aptitude. Even if Xiaoping was accepted as a disciple of a sage, they wouldn't care. However, Xiaoping's name had also entered their minds, and they had a little impression of him. Xiaoping? Where did this person come from? He actually became a disciple of a sage. It seems like he's quite capable. Yi Mingyao from the Lingyun sect also received the news. However, she quickly put it to the back of her mind. She had more important things to do now, which was to catch that big liar, Wu Wudi. If she allowed this liar to continue getting away with it, she didn't know how many people would fall for it and suffer huge losses. Not to mention the grudge between her and that bastard. Just from the perspective of getting rid of a scourge, this liar, Wu Wudi, had to be punished. Otherwise, Yi Mingyao's reputation would be ruined. Chapter 11:14. Right now, in the meditation room, Xiaoping took out a white porcelain bottle from his body. With a wave of his hand, 5 or 6 yin and yang pills immediately flew out and entered his mouth. As soon as it entered his mouth, a few yin-yang elixirs immediately melted and turned into liquid that entered his dantian's qi vessel. It was quickly refined, and black and white energy gushed out from the depths of the qi vessel. It was pure yin energy and pure yang energy. These two energies were like 2 black and white dragons that spread through countless meridians in Xiaoping's body. They permeated into every corner and strengthened every cell in his body. Comfortable. Xiaoping felt his body was warm, and it felt as though every cell was being nourished by the life energy. The black and white energies were swimming around his body. Finally, all these energies flowed into the depths of the Purple Mansion. Walala, within the Purple Mansion, the sea of spiritual power was calm like the calm before the storm. Right at this moment, the entire Purple Mansion shook. A flood of energy rushed in from the depths of his body and quickly turned into majestic spiritual power. The sea of spiritual power constantly expanded. As Xiaoping circulated the pure yang immortal technique, the Purple Mansion slowly expanded, and the spiritual power increased rapidly. Boom! Above the sea, the sun rose from the east. A giant fireball hung high in the sky and revolved in a frenzy. It caused the entire sea of spiritual power to surge and form a whirlpool. As the sea of spiritual power revolved, the purple mansion slowly expanded into the distance. It seemed to be constantly excavating more space, allowing the purple mansion to expand. Boom. All of a sudden, Xiaoping's body shook. He instantly felt that he had broken through the barrier. The entire purple mansion suddenly opened up and the size had doubled. It was now 400 kilometers in diameter. Late stage of purple mansion realm. I finally advanced. Xiaoping's eyes revealed a trace of brilliance. He was already at the peak of the mid-stage of the purple mansion realm and was just one step away from the late stage of the purple mansion realm. Now that he had consumed 5 or 6 yin-yang elixirs, it was equivalent to a step away. Thus, he advanced to the late stage of the purple mansion realm effortlessly. But Xiaoping didn't stop and continued to consume the yin-yang elixirs to strengthen his spiritual power. There was basically no bottleneck in the purple mansion realm. To most of the cultivators, the most difficult thing was to absorb the heaven and earth energy and convert it into spiritual power. Without any external assistance, it would take at least 100 years to have a chance to break through. It was a painstaking effort. However, with the help of medicinal pills, who knows how many years of cultivation could be saved. 10, 20, 30, Xiaoping swallowed the yin and yang pills one by one, and a huge amount of energy surged into his body. The space of his Zifu, which had been expanded by a full fold, was now filled to the brim with magic power. In the sky of the purple mansion space, a large dark cloud suddenly appeared. It was filled with boundless energy. After being purified by the pure yang immortal incantation, it was transformed into magic power and condensed into raindrops. Crash! These magic raindrops fell on the sea, making the sea water even more abundant. Furthermore, with the transformation of the pure yang immortal technique, the magic power became even purer and the sea water became even deeper. Furthermore, the 5 elemental liquid that had yet to be completely refined was now being refined into a large amount of magic power that flowed into his purple palace. Dong. When Xiaoping consumed a total of 100 yin and yang elixirs, the entire Zifu dimension trembled. The magic power almost filled the entire Zifu dimension. It had already reached the level of perfection. Peak of late-stage purple mansion realm. Xiaoping immediately knew that he had already reached the peak of the late-stage purple mansion realm. He was just one step away from advancing to the fulfillment realm and reaching a new realm. Within the purple mansion space, the magic power had already reached the limit of the purple mansion realm and could not be improved anymore. The magic power of the purple mansion space that had a diameter of 400 kilometers made him feel unprecedentedly powerful. In the purple mansion realm, there was probably no one who could compete with Xiaoping in terms of magic power. With a punch, he could flatten 8 mountains with just his strength. The effect of this yin and yang elixir is really not bad. It is worthy of being the exclusive elixir of the Jianghu sect. The effect of condensing magic power is really too good. It can save at least 10 years of cultivation time. Xiaoping praised. He had seen many elixirs in the cloud realm, but he had never seen an elixir with such an excellent effect like the yin and yang elixir. He reckoned that it was not just a matter of the precious medicinal ingredients, but more importantly, the method of refining the elixir. Same-class sects like the Jianghu sect had already reached the acme of elixir refinement. They would not waste much of the medicinal properties of the medicinal ingredients when refining the medicinal ingredients. Even the fusion of different spiritual ingredients and the elixir formula had reached an extremely perfect stage. The medicinal properties were brought into full play. It was not something that the rough alchemy methods in the cloud realm could compare to. If the yin and yang elixir could appear in the cloud realm, there would be at least 10 times more divine realm cultivators than there were now. This was the importance of elixirs to cultivators. Although I used 100 yin and yang elixirs to raise my current cultivation to the late-stage purple mansion realm, I'm afraid it will not be easy to raise it from the late-stage purple mansion realm to the early-stage fulfillment realm. A mere 100 pills are not enough. Xiaoping's eyes flickered. The biggest change in advancing to the fulfillment realm was the transformation of one's spiritual force. It would allow one's spiritual force to transform to the level of divine sense. Once one reached the divine sense realm, one would be able to control magic power more freely. It would be like controlling fingers and arms. One could use magic power to make all kinds of changes and condense 18 types of weapons. It was more than a few times stronger than the purple mansion realm. Moreover, if one's spiritual force reached the divine sense realm, one would have the power to interfere with the material world. One could use the divine sense to attack the enemy and even create illusions. Of course, the divine sense power of the fulfillment realm was not considered powerful. An ordinary fulfillment realm cultivator would only slightly affect others and cause them to be dazed for a moment. However, if it was a stronger cultivator, one look would be enough to kill the enemy. If I can get more yin and yang elixirs, I probably won't have to waste time on the process of condensing magic power. Xia Ping clenched his fist. He felt that the yin and yang elixirs were really good for his cultivation. If he could get more yin and yang elixirs, he would definitely improve at a godly speed. Moreover, if he wanted to break through to the fulfillment realm, he would need more yin and yang elixirs. Chapter 11:15. 1 month later. At a place in the Heaven and Earth sect, there was a group of people gathering. Among them was the 18th prince of the Loki kingdom, Kor, as well as other disciples who had just entered the Heaven and Earth sect. At this time the ranking battle had already ended. Basically, all the disciples who had entered the top 10 had appeared at this place. Kor had obtained the 8th place in the ranking battle. However, this group of people was very dissatisfied. This was because Xia Ping didn't participate in the ranking battle this time. He was too engrossed in cultivation, so he missed the ranking battle. That Xia Ping is really arrogant. He actually didn't even participate in the ranking battle. Is he looking down on us disciples who entered the sect in the same period? He can't even be bothered to fight with us? Someone was very dissatisfied. He was Batu, who was ranked 10th in the ranking battle. He had outstanding talent, tyrannical strength, and was good at using fist techniques. He had already been taken in as the last disciple of the sect's elder. He is, after all, a disciple of a sage. Although we are all in the same period in terms of seniority, he is above us. If we really count it, we have to call him Martial Granduncle. Someone said sinisterly. He said these words clearly to sow discord and had ulterior motives. Bullshit Martial Granduncle. He was just lucky to be chosen by a sage. In terms of strength, I feel that I don't lose to him at all. I just don't know what kind of superhuman abilities he has. The person who spoke was Li Hu, who was ranked 5th. He had a head of golden hair and was like a ferocious tiger. His entire body emitted an extremely terrifying aura. He had an extremely tough body like a monster. It could be said that he was invulnerable to swords and spears. His temper was also rather irritable, the kind that would start a fight at the slightest disagreement. Lu Wenho, what do you think? Many people are saying that you don't live up to your title of first place in the ranking battle. If Xia Ping came, you would definitely be ranked 2nd. A feminine man dressed in black laughed cruelly and sat cross-legged on a stone table. He held a blood-colored dagger in his hand. The dagger in his hand was like a butterfly flying through flowers, flickering with rays of light. He squinted his eyes, revealing a trace of cold light like a poisonous snake. He was Tang Mingchen, who was ranked 3rd. He was surrounded by a feminine and dark aura. The surrounding people all kept a certain distance from Tang Mingchen, as if they were very afraid of this effeminate man, afraid that he would suddenly attack. Tang Mingchen, don't sow discord here. I know very well what you're thinking in your heart. It's nothing more than to sow discord between me and Xia Ping. There's no need to hide it here. Lu Wenho coldly snorted and fiercely warned, however, I am indeed very interested in this Xia Ping. I want to know if he can block my Lu clan's halberd technique. He was 2 meters tall and held a trident in his hand, giving off an invincible aura. His body was straight like a javelin, like an unyielding mountain peak. The Lu family was a famous fighting family in the 6 major star fields. It was said that a sage had once appeared in their family, but for some unknown reason he had fallen. However, this also proved the background of the Lu family. Every disciple that came from the Lu family was a peerless expert, invincible like a fierce beast. This time's ranking battle was the same. Lu Wenho swept all his opponents with absolute strength and won first place among the freshmen. However, he has always stayed in his own mansion and hasn't gone out for a month. Even his food is specially sent to his mansion. It's very difficult to see him. Someone said. As expected of a sage's disciple. The treatment he receives is many times better than that of us personal disciples. Not only does he have his own mansion, but he also has people sending food to his door. Li Hu was extremely jealous. He felt that according to his aptitude, he should be above Xia Ping, who had appeared out of nowhere. However, Dark North Saint had taken a fancy to this kid and turned a blind eye to the rest of them. Since he doesn't go out, why don't we go to him in person? At that time he can't avoid us, right? Tang Mingchen laughed. By the way, Kur, what do you think? Didn't you exchange contact information with him and become friends with him? Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Suddenly, everyone's eyes focused on Kur. Kur spread his hands. I treat him as a friend, but I'm not sure if he treats me as a friend. After all, we've only met once. He expressed his helplessness. During the assessment, the reason why he befriended Xia Ping was because he fancied Xia Ping's strength and felt that the other party had some potential. He didn't expect this kid to be so strong that it was completely beyond his imagination. In the blink of an eye, he had become a disciple of a sage. His status was many times higher than that of an ordinary disciple. His identity as a prince couldn't be compared to him. It was not an exaggeration to say that he had reached the sky in a single bound. To be honest, he thought he was dreaming. The development of things was too exaggerated. Forget it, it's useless to say so much. Let's go find him together. That's right. We're all brothers of the same sect. It's not a big deal to visit him. I believe everyone is also very curious about this Xia Ping and wants to know what kind of superhuman abilities he has. To be honest, I'm indeed very interested in him. He's like a rock that popped out. Previously, my family spent a lot of effort and countless manpower and resources, but we couldn't find any information about him. It's really strange. Indeed. Right now, many people are speculating about him. They say that he might be a primitive man from some barbaric planet, a direct descendant of some ancient family, or a human from an unknown star field. Many people were very interested in Xia Ping. After all, he was the disciple of a sage from the Jianghu sect in the past 1,000 years. Moreover, he had been taken in as the eldest disciple of the famous Dark North Saint. This was even more impressive. In fact, it wasn't just them. Countless humans in the 6 major star domains were also very curious about this kid's background. I'll go too. LV1Ho clenched his fists. I want to test this kid's capabilities and see if he lives up to his name. Since he can become a disciple of a sage, he must have some ability. If he wants to become a disciple of a sage without any ability, he'll be embarrassing the Jianghu sect. Boundless battle intent surged out from his body. He wanted to find Xia Ping to fight. That's right. If we can defeat this kid, maybe the Dark North Saint will look at us in a different light, Tang Mingchen said in a meaningful tone. Hearing this, Li Hu immediately stood up. What are you waiting for? I want to let that Xia Ping know that he shouldn't think that being a disciple of a sage is something amazing. True strength comes from oneself, not from some background. He clenched his fists, making cracking sounds. His muscles and bones sounded together, like a ferocious tiger growling. The eyes of the others also flickered. They were all very tempted. If they could defeat Xia Ping, they would definitely become famous. They might even attract the attention of the Dark North Saint. Chapter 11:16. There was a spirit mountain in Jianghu Star. This was the mountain that Xia Ping was at, and he had named it Yanhuang Peak. At this moment, in the quiet room, after a month of cultivation, Xia Ping had completely consolidated his cultivation and reached the perfected stage of the Purple Mansion realm. Majestic spiritual power filled every corner of the Purple Mansion, and it was almost at the limit. After a period of time, he would be able to advance to the fulfillment realm and transform his spiritual power into divine sense. Of course, this month, Xia Ping didn't just consolidate his cultivation. He also cultivated the new Saint-class martial art, the Great Yin-Yang Tablet Breaking Hand, and thoroughly mastered it. Xia Ping instantly made a move, and a giant hand of spiritual power appeared in the void and slammed down on a huge rock in front of him. Boom! Immediately, the rock was hit by the giant hand of spiritual power. It was as if it was crushed by a terrifying force. It was like tofu, and it turned into powder in an instant. Even the force of the giant hand of spiritual power seeped down inch by inch and slammed on the ground of the quiet room. With a boom, a giant palm print immediately appeared on the ground, and a cracking sound could be heard. One had to know that the rocks of Jianghu Star were many times harder than the rocks of the Cloud Realm. Even an ordinary Fulfillment Realm cultivator could only leave a palm print on the rock. It was simply impossible to smash the rock into powder like Xia Ping did. If others saw this scene, they would be so shocked that their eyeballs would fall out. Such power was beyond imagination. As expected of a Saint-class secret art, it is indeed powerful. Xia Ping was very satisfied. This palm was just a small test, and he didn't use all of its power. Moreover, his cultivation was not enough. He was still far from being able to fully unleash the power of the Great Yin-Yang Tablet Breaking Hand. In addition to cultivating the Great Yin-Yang Tablet Breaking Hand, He also cultivated a mysterious and powerful spiritual secret art given by Dark North Sage, Lion's Vajra Mark. To cultivate this secret art, Xiaoping didn't use hatred but chose to comprehend it on his own. For the current him, his understanding of martial arts was many times better than before. He could learn ordinary secret arts without the help of the system. Moreover, the Lion's Vajra seal seemed to be similar to the 8 heavenly dragons' music. Both were unique techniques that used mental energy to attack the enemy. However, the heavenly dragon's 8 notes imitated the voice of a heavenly dragon to attack, while the lion's diamond seal imitated the aura of a divine lion through the giant palm, instantly blasting out mental energy to attack the enemy. This kind of power was violent, capable of destroying everything in its path. Once the enemy was struck by the lion's Vajra seal, if their spiritual power was weak, they would fall unconscious to the ground at best. If it was serious, they would die immediately. This was how tyrannical and unreasonable it was. Even a cultivator with powerful mental strength would fall into a trance for a moment after being hit by this mental attack. Of course, if one's soul force was stronger than Xiaoping's, they would naturally be immune to it. But no matter what, this secret technique was very strange and powerful. Even if Xiaoping faced a large number of enemies, he could still easily deal with them. It was simply impossible to defeat him using the C tactic. It could be said that after a month of cultivation, Xiaoping's strength had increased by a large margin. As expected, coming to the Jianghu sect was the right decision. If I had continued to stay in the cloud realm, I don't know how long it would take for me to improve. Xiaoping was very satisfied. Right now, what you need the most is the yin and yang elixir, or at least elixirs that are not inferior to the yin and yang elixir. This way you can quickly break through to a higher realm and save a lot of cultivation time. Corinne reminded him. I know that. Xiaoping was also aware of this. But let's not talk about this first. Previously, you spent $1 billion universe dollars to buy various materials on the virtual network. How is the situation now? During the month of cultivation, Corinne was not idle either. He used the virtual network to buy materials everywhere and then quickly sent them over through the Universal Express Company, intending to repair the Saint-grade spaceship. The materials are being sent over one after another. I'm already starting to repair it, Corinne said excitedly. I estimate that after a period of time, I can start the multitude of stars and travel in the universe. Fortunately, you have become a disciple of a sage. No matter how many things you buy, no one dares to have any ideas, and no one dares to inquire about any information. Therefore, the secrecy is still good and no one knows about it. With the protection of the identity of a sage's disciple, if Xiaoping did not do anything too out of line, people would turn a blind eye, let alone just receiving the express delivery. But even so, Corinne was still very careful. After all, a Saint-grade spaceship was too precious. Even a sage would be envious if he knew about it. After all, Corinne's old master had paid a huge price to build this spaceship. Even a sage had to pay such a price. One could imagine the value of this to a sage. Therefore, just in case, he was still very careful. The work of repairing the Saint-grade spaceship was only done in Xiaoping's spatial ring, and no one knew about it. That's good. Xiaoping nodded. Dong dong dong. At this moment, someone knocked on the door of the quiet room. Come in, Xiaoping said. With a bang, the door of the quiet room opened, and an old man in a black robe walked in. This was the butler appointed by the Jianghu sect to Yanhuang Peak. He was in charge of all the affairs of Yanhuang Peak and managed the many servants of Yanhuang Peak. After all, Yanhuang Peak was very big. Every day people needed to clean, cut flowers and plants, cook and wash clothes. It was unthinkable without enough servants. Of course, these servants were loyal to the Jianghu sect. What's the matter? Xiaoping asked. The butler said, Young master, there are some official disciples of the Jianghu sect outside the mansion. They have been waiting for a long time. One of them is called Kuer, and he claims to be a friend of young master. Official disciple? Kuer? Come to see me? Xiaoping raised his eyebrows. All right, let them come in. We'll meet in the hall. Anyway, he had just ended his seclusion and had nothing to do. There was no harm in meeting this group of official disciples. However, he did not know why Kuer and the others suddenly came. Yes, young master. The black-robed butler immediately retreated. Xiaoping also left the quiet room and went to the hall of the mansion. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Just as he arrived at the hall, a group of people was led in by the butler. Kuer was among them. Men? Xiaoping narrowed his eyes. He could sense that the aura of this group of people was different. All of them were extraordinary. Moreover, from the way they looked at him, many of them had battle intent. They probably came with ill intentions. However, he didn't say anything and continued to be like a spring breeze. Brother Xia. Ku'er came and greeted him. Chapter 11:17. Brother Ku'er, why did you come to me? Xia Ping asked directly. He didn't have time to beat around the bush with them. This? Ku'er's eyes flickered. For a moment he didn't know what to say. Let me say it. At this moment Tang Mingchen walked out and smiled. Brother Xia, this is the first time we meet. My name is Tang Mingchen. I've heard of Brother Xia's famous reputation before. You were even accepted as a disciple by the Dark North Saint. I believe Brother Xia must be skilled in martial arts, so we boldly came here to compete with Brother Xia. We want to know the gap between us and Brother Xia. He looked at Xia Ping with a very humble attitude and directly flattered Xia Ping. Compete? I see. Do you want me to give you some pointers in martial arts? Xia Ping nodded with a look of realization. Hearing this, even Tang Mingchen, who was very shrewd, couldn't help but twitch his mouth. This bastard was so thick-skinned. He clearly just wanted to compete with this kid. But in this bastard's words, it became that they wanted Xia Ping to give them pointers. Wasn't this already dwarfing them? He was clearly taking advantage of them. The others also bared their teeth, feeling that this bastard was getting more and more arrogant. Although they knew that disciples of saints were very arrogant, they didn't expect him to be so blatant. It was obvious that he looked down on them and didn't treat them as people of the same level. But fists and kicks have no eyes. We're all disciples of the same sect, and I don't know how to control my strength. It wouldn't be good if I accidentally cripple you. Xia Ping was worried about this. Fuck. Tang Mingchen and the others were so angry that their lungs were about to explode. If it wasn't for the fact that they still had a bit of rationality in their hearts, they would have probably beaten this arrogant bastard up long ago. How arrogant was this bastard? One had to know that their martial arts cultivation had all reached the fulfillment realm, and some were even at the peak of the fulfillment realm. They were a whole realm higher than Xia Ping, and their strength was countless times stronger. Even if Xia Ping was a martial arts monster, they didn't think that this kid could surpass a realm and defeat them. Moreover, they were also geniuses who were above countless mortals. But this kid was worried that they didn't know how to control their strength and accidentally cripple them. This was too much. Did he think that they were porcelain dolls? The kind that could be shattered with a casual punch. The anger in their hearts grew even stronger. Brother Xia, don't worry. The sparring between fellow disciples will not take place in reality, but in the virtual world. Tang Mingchen put on a fake smile. We can open up a temporary battlefield in the virtual world. This way, not only will we be able to unleash our full strength, but we won't suffer too much damage. Even if you die in the virtual world, your mind will only be weakened for over a month. It won't be fatal. In fact, this is also a popular spar between fellow disciples in the Universe sect. He gave Xia Ping a detailed explanation. I see. Xia Ping rubbed his chin. Alright, it's quite interesting to spar with fellow brothers. I agree to fight with you. Really? Tang Mingchen and the rest were overjoyed. They didn't expect Xia Ping to agree to fight with them so easily. Initially, they thought they would have to spend a lot of effort to convince him. All of them rubbed their palms and gritted their teeth, waiting to teach this arrogant and conceited bastard a lesson when they fought. They wanted to let this kid know how high the heavens were and how deep the earth was. However, it's still too weak to fight with just you guys alone. Just boring. How about this, all of you will come at me together? Xia Ping stood with his hands behind his back and said loudly. What? Not only Ku'er and Tang Mingchen but even the others were stunned. They simply didn't dare to believe what they heard. Brother Xia, what do you mean by that? Come at me together? Are you thinking of fighting against the 10 of us alone? Tang Mingchen's eyes widened. Even though he had seen countless things and experienced many dark things, he had never seen such a thing before. The people who came this time around were none other than the top 10 disciples in the ranking battle. Each of them was a dragon among men. They had defeated countless new disciples and stood at the peak of many new disciples. Could be said that they were all extremely powerful. Even if Tang Mingchen was extremely confident in himself, he didn't dare to say that he could easily defeat everyone in the top 10. After all, at this level, the gap between them wasn't very big. If there was even the slightest bit of carelessness, he might be defeated instantly. But this kid actually dared to say that he could fight against the 10 of them alone and ask them to come at him together? LV1Ho, Batu, Li Hu, and the others narrowed their eyes. Each of their eyes revealed a trace of cold light. This was simply bullying them. To what extent was he looking down on them? That's right. Xia Ping stood with his hands behind his back. It's too troublesome to fight one by one. It's better to deal with all of you together. This way you can also understand the gap between us. This will be very good for your future martial Dao career. You will be able to fight bravely after knowing shame. Fuck this bitch. Tang Mingchen simply wanted to spit on this bastard. They hadn't even fought yet, and the outcome of the battle was still unknown. He actually wanted them to fight bravely after knowing shame. Did this guy know what it meant to be thick-skinned? Did this guy know what modesty was? Alright, we promise you. Since you want to fight against the 10 of us alone, then we will fulfill your wish. That's right. Don't disappoint us, Xia Ping, the Dark North Saint's disciple. That's right. If you are beaten to a pulp by us, I'm afraid you won't have the face to be the Dark North Saint's disciple. Ba Tu and the others were infuriated by Xia Ping. They immediately agreed to Xia Ping's request. In any case, this fellow was courting death. How could they not fulfill his wish and teach him a lesson? They decided that this battle must end in an instant, displaying the overwhelming difference in strength. However, Brother Xia, according to the Chenghuan sect's rules, every time a disciple fights, there must be some sort of prize. This is a tribute from the loser to the strong. This is also the sect's way of letting the loser have a deep impression of shame. What do you think? Tang Mingchen looked at Xia Ping. Prize. Of course, that's not a problem. If I lose, I will compensate each of you with 100 yin-yang pills. If you lose, each of you will have to compensate me with 100 yin-yang pills. That shouldn't be a problem, right? Xia Ping smiled. His eyes brightened. Tang Mingchen's words were exactly what he wanted. Before this, he was still thinking about how to earn a large amount of yin-yang pills. He didn't expect that someone would automatically send yin-yang pills to him. No problem. In that case, let's set the battle to be 6 hours later. Tang Mingchen agreed immediately. Although 100 yin-yang pills wasn't a small sum to them, this was a battle they were sure to win. How could he refuse? Chapter 11:18. Wait, Brother Xia. Kor suddenly said, don't be rash. Although you might be strong, it's still very difficult for you to fight 10 of them alone. Moreover, 1,000 yin-yang pills isn't a small amount. It won't be easy to earn it back. He tried to persuade Xia Ping tactfully, hoping that Xia Ping would stop the bet. Clearly, he felt that Xia Ping's decision was very rash. He was clearly giving them yin-yang pills. Moreover, yin-yang pills were very important in the Chenghuan sect. They were basically a common currency. If one wanted to earn a large number of yin-yang pills, they would have to spend a lot of time or take huge risks. After all, if yin-yang pills were really that easy to earn, everyone would be rich. Kor, Xia Ping isn't even anxious. Why are you so anxious? That's right. Brother Xia is a disciple of a saint. His talent is monstrous. How can we mortals compare to him? That's right. Since Brother Xia wants to give the 10 of us some pointers, let him do it. Why stop him? There will always be winners and losers in a duel. Do we have to win to duel? If that's the case, what's the point of fighting? Tang Mingchen and the others shouted. They frowned and looked at Kor with unfriendly expressions. They felt that this kid was blocking their path to riches and more or less didn't know how to appreciate favors. It's fine. It's just a spar. Moreover, it doesn't matter even if we lose. It's just 1,000 yin-yang pills. It's a small amount. Xia Ping revealed a rich and overbearing look. Tang Mingchen and the others were very jealous. Looking at this despicable person's arrogance, it was definitely the Dark North Saint who gave him so many yin-yang pills. Otherwise, how could he have obtained 1,000 yin-yang pills? As the disciples of the elders, they only received 10 yin-yang pills. Of course, because they were basically all from large families and had received rewards from their families, each of them had some yin-yang pills on them. However, they weren't considered rich. They couldn't be like Xia Ping, who casually took out 1,000 yin-yang pills and didn't care. All right. Hearing Xia Ping say that, Kor gave up on trying to persuade him. In any case, he had already done his best. However, if the other party still wanted to agree, he couldn't be blamed. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. After saying these words, Tang Mingchen and the others left one after another, returning to their residences to make sufficient preparations for the duel in 6 hours. Although they were very confident in themselves and believed that they would definitely win, a lion would still do its best to catch a rabbit. No matter what, the other party was a disciple of a saint, so it would not be too much to make more preparations. The news that Xia Ping and the top 10 new students were planning to fight in the virtual battlefield spread rapidly, and all the disciples in the Jianghu sect knew about it. Shocking news, the sage's disciple Xia Ping is going to battle against the top 10 disciples of the freshman ranking competition. No way, is the legendary Xia Ping finally going to appear? This time I finally have a chance to see just how powerful that Xia Ping really is. Even Dark North Saint took him in as a disciple. This time I must observe him carefully. It is said that this duel is not that simple. It is not an ordinary one-on-one battle, but Xia Ping wants to fight 1 against 10. Crazy, this kid is completely crazy. I heard that he is only a Purple Mansion Realm cultivator, but all the top 10 new students are at the Fulfillment Realm. With a difference of 1 realm, it is already difficult enough to fight one-on-one, and he wants to fight 1 against 10. He is not a lunatic, he must be a monster. Otherwise, why would he agree to such a duel? So what if he is a monster? Which one of the top 10 new students isn't a monster? I don't believe that he can fight 1 against 10. This is too exaggerated. It is indeed ridiculous, but as a disciple of a saint, he can't be a fool. Since he dared to agree to such a duel, it means that he has the confidence to win. He definitely isn't here to be a joke. Stop talking nonsense and immediately enter the virtual battlefield to watch. This is an unprecedented duel. Many of the new disciples were stunned by this news. Be it the news of the sage's disciple Xia Ping finally showing himself or the news of Xia Ping's intention to duel with the top 10 new students, it was like a bomb that blew everyone up. It could be said that this duel was the center of attention, and it was even more eye-catching than the duel between the new students. Not only were the new disciples interested, but even the senior brothers and sisters had heard of this news. Interesting. I was curious when Xia Ping would appear, but I didn't expect him to create such a big news. This is really out of my expectation. It might just be a duel between Purple Mansion Realm brats, but he is still a disciple of a sage. I want to see what capabilities this kid has. Wants to fight 1 against 10? Anyone who dares to do this is either a lunatic or an invincible war god who can defeat everything. I wonder what kind of person this Xia Ping is. Let's go and watch. This is a future important figure of the Jianghu sect. It might be the start of a legend. Many of the senior brothers and sisters in the Jianghu sect were very interested when they heard this news. They all rushed into the virtual battlefield wanting to watch this duel. Even some of the sect's elders knew about this news. They might not be very interested in a low-level duel between Purple Mansion Realm cultivators, but it was Xia Ping, the last disciple of the Dark North Saint. Most importantly, Xia Ping had comprehended the Jianghu sect's ultimate art, the Great Yin-Yang Tablet Smashing Hand. This news had already spread to the upper echelons of the Jianghu sect, and they all wanted to see to what extent Xia Ping had mastered this ultimate art. The matter was so big that even the Dark North Saint had received the news. 1 against 10? This kid sure is courageous. Is the Great Yin-Yang Tablet Smashing Hand really so powerful? Even if he is challenging someone of a higher cultivation stage, can he fight against 10 at the same time? The Dark North Saint raised his brows. Patriarch, do we need to stop this farce? An elder asked. There is no need. It is just a battle in the virtual world. Even if he dies, his spirit will only be injured for a month. The Dark North Saint smiled. If he wins, it will increase his combat experience. If he loses, it will let him know that the universe is incomparably vast. Even if he has mastered the Great Yin-Yang Tablet Smashing Hand, it won't be enough for him to do as he pleases. No matter what, he will benefit greatly in this duel. He waved his hand. He had always been very tolerant towards these young fellows. As long as they didn't lose their lives, it was fine as long as they caused a ruckus. If they lost their drive at such a young age, then there wouldn't be any future in the martial Tao. Yes, Patriarch. The elder nodded. Chapter 11:19. A few hours later in the virtual battlefield. This was a vast open space that stretched as far as the eye could see. Xia Ping, Ke, Li Hu, LV1Ho, and the others all appeared in this virtual battlefield, and the two sides faced each other from afar. At this moment, hundreds of millions of people rushed in at once and countless spectators were watching. They were all very interested to know who would win and who would lose in this duel. Of course, most people were optimistic about LV1Ho and the others. After all, LV1Ho and the others had the absolute upper hand in terms of martial arts realm and numbers, and Xia Ping was at an overwhelming disadvantage. Brother Xia, it's not too late for you to admit defeat now. In fact, we can also fight one-on-one. After all, we have more people and it's more or less unfair to fight against you. Tang Mingchen smiled slightly and put forward his suggestion. In fact, we want to fight you in a fair environment and verify each other's martial arts strength. He looked generous, but in fact he was attacking Xiaoping's momentum. If Xiaoping agreed, it would be equivalent to admitting defeat and being inferior. In this case, even if it was a one-on-one fight, he would lose in terms of momentum. This was a psychological confrontation. Tang Mingchen knew very well about psychological warfare. Although the duel had not yet begun, the confrontation had already begun. Cut the crap, just fight. Xiaoping stood with his hands behind his back and glanced sideways. I don't care about your mediocre martial arts. He was not moved at all. Good boy, you're arrogant to the extreme. I want to see what you're capable of later. Li Hu and the others glared at Xiaoping angrily. They really couldn't stand this bastard for a second. Clang! At this moment, a crisp bell sounded in the virtual battlefield, symbolizing the beginning of the battle. Boy, die. In an instant, Li Hu moved extremely quickly. Like a peerless, fierce tiger, he jumped out of the crowd, carrying an extremely violent aura, and took the lead. Blood Tiger Fist. He clenched his fists and all the strength in his body burst out. Every inch of his muscles swelled, and the violent magic power deep in his body affected the surrounding air. Vaguely, a vision of heaven and earth appeared behind him. A ferocious tiger more than 100 feet tall ran from the void, roaring at the sky, and the sound waves rolled. In fact, the aura condensed from its body was so solid that it covered the heavens and earth as it came crashing down on Xiaoping, causing mental pressure. This was the strength of a fulfillment realm cultivator. They had already successfully condensed their divine senses and could cause initial damage to the material world. If it was a regular Purple Mansion realm cultivator, they would probably be struck by the divine senses and be dazed for a moment. In a battle between experts, a single second of negligence could mean death. Such powerful strength. The spectating Qinghuan sect disciples were all astonished. Even among the fulfillment realm cultivators, Li Hu was extremely powerful. His physique was extremely special and he was like a monster with shocking talent. The Blood Tiger Fist was also an extremely brilliant fist technique. Once it was executed, it was as if an ancient ferocious beast had appeared in the world, emitting a terrifying and violent aura. Most of the time, the enemy didn't even know what was happening before their will was snatched away by the violent aura. If they were hit by the fist, their entire body would be torn into countless pieces. Moreover, the evil blood chi produced by this fist technique specialized in breaking through protective qigong and causing real damage. For some martial artists who were proficient in Henglian Kung Fu, it was simply a nemesis, a nightmare. During the freshman ranking tournament, Li Hu relied on this fist technique to defeat God knows how many opponents. He was also quite confident in his own strength, believing that he could defeat Xiaoping with one punch. Great Yin-Yang Tablet Breaking Palm. Xiaoping made his move abruptly and immediately used the Great Yin-Yang Tablet Breaking Hand. What? Li Hu was immediately shocked. He discovered that Xiaoping's aura had undergone a huge change in an instant. From a harmless little rabbit, he had instantly turned into a ferocious beast. A huge hand condensed out of mana slapped down from mid-air, descending from the sky. A terrifying aura instantly locked onto his body, and the area covered by the huge hand formed a domain. He actually managed to comprehend the Great Yin-Yang Tablet smashing palm to this level. He is indeed a monster. When the elders saw this scene, they immediately recognized that this was the legendary Great Yin-Yang Tablet smashing hand. Even though Xiaoping was not able to unleash much of this ultimate art's power, he was still able to do so. However, the destructive power that erupted now could not be underestimated. Without a certain degree of understanding, it was estimated that this kid would not be able to use it at all. What the hell is this? Li Hu's hair stood on end because he found that this huge hand condensed out of mana was simply like the hand of God, slapping down from the void. It was simply unavoidable and unavoidable. This huge hand contained the power of yin and yang, producing a terrifying suction force. Once the aura on his body was locked, then no matter where he fled, he would not be able to escape. Moreover, it was densely covered with runes. The lines of the palm were extremely clear, visible to the naked eye, like lines of the great Tao, resonating with heaven and earth, containing a tyrannical destructive power. Dong. His fist collided with this huge hand, and his Blood Tiger Fist instantly collapsed. The mana on it disintegrated inch by inch, as if the air had produced a state of collapse. Moreover, this force even passed down inch by inch, directly bombarding his body. Oh no, run. As a warrior, Li Hu instinctively felt a fatal crisis. He wanted to use his body technique to escape, but he found that with his body as the center, the area within a radius of tens of meters had been controlled by this huge hand. It was as if he had been pinched by a giant hand, and there was nowhere to escape. Ah! Li Hu immediately let out a shrill scream. His entire body was like a tortoise, instantly slapped to the ground, and immediately a huge human-shaped pit appeared on the ground. Dozens of dense cracks also appeared on the ground, extending for several kilometers. The scene was shocking. An intense pain spread throughout his body, penetrating into his soul. Although this was only a virtual space, there was also soul power in it. If he was hurt, the pain was 100% real and it could not be faked. With a few cracking sounds, the tyrannical force instantly penetrated into every corner of his body. His bones were broken and even his internal organs were severely damaged. Whoosh! In the next second, Li Hu's body disappeared from the virtual space. Obviously he had been slapped to death by Xia Ping. No way. He was slapped to death with one slap? This is too much of a joke. What happened? What the hell just happened? The people who were watching the battle were stunned. The duel had just begun. Li Hu, who was ranked 5th among the freshmen, had defeated many geniuses with a pair of iron fists. But now he could not even withstand a slap from Xia Ping and was directly slapped to death. Chapter 11:20. Amazing. Is this the prowess of the great Yin Yang tablet breaking hand? After mastering this martial art, it's a piece of cake to challenge those of a higher level. This Li Hu didn't lose for no reason. One mustn't be careless when facing the great Yin Yang tablet breaking hand. If there's a moment of carelessness, it'll be over in one move. The eyelids of many Jianghu sect's elders twitched. They clearly saw that according to Li Hu's reaction speed, he should be able to dodge this palm strike. He shouldn't have been killed so easily. However, this palm strike had an extremely strong sticky force. It was like the forces of yin and yang were strangling each other at the same time. It locked onto Li Hu's aura, making it impossible for him to dodge or hide. In the end, Li Hu could only be smacked to death like a punching bag. Even though Xia Ping hadn't completely unleashed the true power of the great Yin Yang tablet breaking hand, the sect's elders could tell how terrifying this Saint-tier ultimate art was. It was definitely extraordinary. Li Hu was defeated. Tang Mingchen and the others were astonished. Previously they had looked down on Xia Ping a little. Perhaps Li Hu alone would be able to make Xia Ping feel anxious and at a loss. He might even be able to defeat Xia Ping. However, Li Hu was instantly killed without even having the strength to struggle. This immediately shocked them. They were also very clear that this kid was as expected of a disciple of a saint. He was completely different from the enemies they had faced in the past. If they continued to be careless, they would also follow in Li Hu's footsteps. If they were to lose the match despite fighting 10 against 1, they would really lose all their face. Tang Mingchen and the others exchanged a glance as if they were telepathically connected. They knew that this enemy was no small matter and they couldn't afford to be careless at all. Swoosh. In an instant, 5 to 6 people rushed out, including Batu Kuer and the others. Although Kuer more or less disliked Xia Ping, he was still a cultivator after all. If he were to lose this battle, he would be greatly embarrassed. Therefore, no matter what, he had to go all out. 9 Palaces Sword Art. Kuer immediately took out a meter-long sword and pounced towards Xia Ping. He executed a supreme sword art. This was a peerless king-tier sword art that he had exchanged from Jianghu sect. It was extremely close to a saint-tier ultimate art and had boundless might. With a thrust of the sword chi immediately overlapped. He stepped on the 9 Palaces steps, and 9 figures of him appeared in the entire field. It was impossible to see where his real body was. It was as if 9 peerless swordsmen were attacking at the same time, increasing their power by several times. It could be said that his current strength was much stronger than when he was in the ranking tournament. Xia Ping, have a taste of my blood-melting saber. A blood-colored figure also rushed out from the left. It was Batu, who was ranked 10th. He held a large blood-colored blade in his hand, and like a brown bear, he leaped over from the distance and slashed out in the air. The blood-dissolving saber technique was an extremely strange and vicious saber technique that was close to a sacred unique skill. If someone was struck by this saber technique, their blood would immediately be sucked dry. In a few breaths' time they would turn into a dried corpse like a mummy. This was definitely an extremely evil saber technique, and it was very difficult to successfully cultivate it. One had to be able to control the bloodthirsty thoughts in one's heart. Otherwise, one would be controlled by the demonic thoughts and become a bloodthirsty demon. There was once a cultivator who had learned the blood-dissolving saber technique, but he couldn't control himself at all. One winter night, he turned into a demon and massacred all the humans in the city. There were millions of casualties. Boom. As this saber blasted over, countless sword chi gathered together and transformed into a huge blood-colored skeleton. It roared ferociously like a demon wanting to swallow Xiaoping in one bite. Frightened Dragon Whip. The person who charged out from the right was a woman ranked second. Her name was Qin Fanghua. She was a plump woman and weighed 300 kilograms. She looked like a small mountain. However, when she moved, she was extremely agile and light as a feather. It was as though gravity had no effect on her. She was good at using the whip technique and had mastered the unique skill Frightened Dragon Whip. With this whip technique, she had defeated countless opponents. Ordinary Outer Sanctum disciples would instantly faint after being hit by the whip. It was said that she had a hobby of abusing men. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. In just a breath's time, there were hundreds and thousands of whip shadows in the air. Each whip shadow was like a poisonous snake, making hissing sounds. The surrounding people were all in awe. They could feel that this whip shadow contained a sinister Yin energy. If they were hit, the Yin energy would instantly injure their internal organs. Thousands of whip shadows bombarded down like a group of dancing snakes. There was no way to avoid them. Too powerful. The Outer Sanctum disciples who were watching in the virtual battlefield were all shocked. They were in awe. She was indeed worthy of being the top 10 cultivators among the freshmen. Her understanding of martial arts had reached a level that ordinary disciples couldn't reach. It had been more than 10 days since the end of the ranking tournament, but during this period of time, they had improved by leaps and bounds. It was as though they were constantly evolving. The gap between the strong and the weak was getting bigger and bigger like a chasm. This year's disciples are not bad. Some of the senior brothers and sisters instantly raised their brows. They also had times when they were weak. If they were to put themselves in their shoes, if they were still fulfillment realm cultivators, it would be hard to tell who would win if they fought against this group of people. It might even be possible for them to be defeated. The Xiaoping is finished. Feeling the power of these top 10 disciples, the surrounding spectators couldn't help but have this thought. Such power was simply invincible in the same realm, and it was impossible for anyone to defeat them at the same time. Moreover, Xiaoping was only at the Purple Mansion realm. If he advanced to the Fulfillment realm, it might be possible for him to win. But with his current martial arts realm, there was no chance of winning. But at this moment, Xiaoping immediately moved against the 5 or 6 experts that attacked him. Lion's Vajra Seal. In an instant, Xiaoping formed a seal with both hands and used this spiritual secret technique. Immediately, his spiritual power erupted, and there seemed to be a giant phantom of a lion in the void. It was as though a divine lion had descended to the earth and roared at the sky. Golden light bloomed around it and it was extremely dazzling. What? Ku Air and the others who attacked Xiaoping were all shocked because they sensed that at this moment, Xiaoping's body erupted with an overwhelming spiritual power. It was like a towering mountain, like a giant that couldn't be looked at directly. It crushed over fiercely and knocked on their souls like a heavy hammer. No matter how fast their attack speed was, how could it be faster than the speed of spiritual power? Chapter 11:21. Not good. How can this be? Why is his mental strength so powerful? We are fulfillment realm cultivators who have already condensed divine senses. Why is this kid's mental strength far above ours, resulting in such an overwhelming advantage? Kerr and the others were stunned. They felt like they were in the middle of a stormy sea. They were just a small boat in such a turbulent sea that could be destroyed at any moment. It was also like a little white rabbit in a grassland suddenly facing a lion. It immediately felt like it was on the verge of death. Boom. When the mental strength surged down, their minds instantly went blank. It was as if time had stopped. Their entire body stopped in midair, unable to move. To ordinary people, a moment of stillness was nothing. It could pass in the blink of an eye. However, in a battle between experts, it was simply fatal. Whoosh. Xiaoping also attacked at that moment. He took a step forward and slammed his palm down. It was the great yin-yang tablet breaking hand. A terrifying hand made of magic power quickly condensed in midair. Black and white air currents swirled like a huge black and white millstone. It also looked like the hand of a giant. Dong. At that moment, the hand stretched out its 5 fingers and quickly closed. Like an eagle grabbing a chick, it grabbed Kerr and the other 5 people. A terrifying force enveloped their bodies. Even the power they unleashed was instantly annihilated by this force, disappearing in mid-air. It's over. Kerr and the others were horrified. They wanted to move their bodies with all their might, but it was to no avail. They could only watch as the hand closed in. This feeling was extremely terrifying. It was as if they were watching their own deaths and being crushed into meat paste by a millstone. Xia Ping squeezed gently. With a boom, the bodies of Kerr and the others exploded like watermelons. The air vibrated thousands of times like a nuclear explosion. The destructive power generated was extremely shocking. A huge mushroom cloud appeared in mid-air, and the shockwave spread out in all directions. The ground was immediately blasted into a crater that was thousands of meters deep. Countless cracks appeared, densely packed like a spider web. Kerr and the others were immediately expelled from the virtual world, and their consciousness returned to the real world. All of them were gasping for breath in their own bedrooms. Their eyes were filled with shock and unwillingness, as if they were unwilling to be killed by Xia Ping in one move. Such resentment, unwillingness, and regret made them gnash their teeth. However, the surrounding audience was stunned. The situation of the battle had taken a sudden turn. Xia Ping should have been in a fatal crisis, but now Xia Ping had turned the situation around. In an instant, the 6 experts exploded at the same time, shattering in mid-air. The power was so violent that it made them so scared that their jaws almost dropped. Damn it, what happened just now? Kuair and the other experts were squashed to death like bugs. They couldn't even escape. It's too exaggerated. I don't understand what just happened at all. Why were the 6 of them frozen all of a sudden, as though they were struck by a martial arts mystique that has been lost for a long time? I'm not sure. The battle situation changed too quickly. The outcome was decided in an instant. Could it be that these guys were bribed by Xia Ping and went easy on him at the critical moment? Stop joking. Which one of Kuair and the others isn't a member of the royal family or from a large family? How much money would it take to bribe these geniuses? Ordinary people wouldn't be able to do it even if they went bankrupt. This is as ridiculous as bribing the richest man. The surrounding outer sect disciples were all stunned. They couldn't see what had happened even with their eyesight, but one thing they were sure of was that Kuair and the others had definitely not gone easy on them. Instead, something incredible had happened during the battle. What powerful mental power. It's too exaggerated. No way. Is this still the mental power of a Purple Mansion realm cultivator? It can definitely sweep away those in the fulfillment realm and is comparable to a divine realm cultivator. Could it be that his innate soul power is extremely terrifying? Moreover, he has mastered an extremely powerful mental secret skill. His attacks are traceless and formless. In that case, the human wave tactic has no effect on him. Those with weak mental power will be killed instantly. No wonder he dared to agree to this battle. He does have some ability to fight 1 against 10. If he didn't have this ability, how would he dare to become a disciple of a saint? Many senior brothers and senior sisters were extremely discerning and knowledgeable. They could immediately tell that the reason why Kerr and the others had suddenly frozen midair was because they had been struck by Xia Ping's mental attack and were momentarily dazed. In the end, they lost the initiative and were killed by Xia Ping with 1 palm. It could be said that this was the difference in strength that couldn't be made up for. This kid is indeed not bad. That's to be expected. If his mental power isn't strong enough, how can he resist the pressure of the heaven and earth wall? I wonder if he learned this mental secret skill himself or if the old ancestor taught him. Its power is really extraordinary. Indeed. Even the heaven and earth sect doesn't have such a high-level mental secret skill. No matter where he got it from, if one's mental power isn't strong enough, they probably won't be able to gain the upper hand in front of him. Being born with a strong soul is indeed unfathomable. Fortunately, he is a disciple of our heaven and earth sect. I can understand why the old ancestor took him as a disciple. The group of elders nodded. They stroked their beards, feeling very happy. The stronger Xia Ping was, the brighter the future of the heaven and earth sect would be. How could they not be happy? After all, in the entire universe, there were as many powerful cultivators as the hairs on a cow. The heaven and earth sect wasn't considered much. Go and die. At this moment, the situation of the battle suddenly changed. After Xia Ping finished off Kuair and the others with a single move, he landed on the ground. But suddenly 2 black figures charged out. One was the third-ranked Tang Mingqian. He had been hiding in the dark for a long time and took advantage of the moment when Xiaoping killed Kuer and the others to instantly attack, finding an opening in that instant. A black dagger appeared in his hand. Like a phantom, it appeared from a blind spot that Xiaoping couldn't see and fiercely stabbed towards Xiaoping's back. The other was the 7th-ranked panda. He was proficient in the shadow binding art and could control shadows to restrain the movements of his opponent. He was also an assassin and was extremely powerful. He worked together with Tang Mingqian to set up this fatal trap. Michem. Xiaoping narrowed his eyes. He discovered that his arms, legs, and even his entire body were tied up by black ropes. He couldn't move at all, as though he had been struck by the tortoise binding art. Chapter 11:22. Brother Xia, you are indeed powerful. As expected of a disciple of a saint. Tang Mingqian laughed sinisterly. That wave of mental attack just now almost hit me. It gave me the illusion that I was about to go to hell. Fortunately, I am a vigilant person and did not attack so impulsively. Otherwise, I would have definitely died along with Kor and the others. This move is almost unsolvable. But now that you have been hit by my and Panda's moves, it is impossible for you to escape. This time we have won. Go to hell. He was extremely excited. When Xiaoping unleashed his strength in an instant, he was almost scared to death. That destructive mental force that swept through everything was simply unsolvable. This was because this was a mental attack. Speed and physical strength could not withstand it. The only thing that could be blocked was soul force. The problem was this overwhelming spiritual gap made him feel despair. Fortunately, Tang Mingqian retreated in time and did not follow those idiots. Otherwise, he would not have been able to escape being killed in a single move and being annihilated. Furthermore, this situation was both a crisis and an opportunity. He felt that Xiaoping had killed 6 experts and must have expended a lot of energy, so he could not recover his magic power so quickly. Therefore, he took this opportunity to cooperate with Panda and instantly set up this trap. It was obvious that things had progressed very smoothly. As expected, this kid was careless and fell for it. That's right, Brother Xia. No one has been able to break free from my shadow binding technique so far. Just die obediently. Panda was also very pleased with himself. Every shadow rope on my shadow binding technique has a strength of several hundred kilograms. With thousands of them stacked together, unless you are the reincarnation of a divine beast, you will not be able to break free. Obediently surrender. You're already finished. He was also very excited. He could finally defeat this monster-like disciple of a saint. This time, not only would they be able to become famous, they would even be able to obtain 100 yin and yang pills. At this moment, Panda seemed to have seen his victory and the scene of 10,000 people cheering for him. He also seemed to have seen this brat's mournful face. He could brag about this victory for the rest of his life. In the future, even if Xiaoping became a saint, he could still brag that he was someone who had defeated a saint. Tang Mingqian's expression was ferocious. He knew very well that if Xiaoping found a way to break free from the shadow binding technique, then they would probably be completely finished. Boom. He circulated the mana in his body and infused it all into the dagger in his hand. Immediately, a terrifying penetrative power exploded out. No one would be able to block this kind of assassination. He could instantly pierce through this brat's heart. But when he stabbed the dagger at Xiaoping, there was a clanging sound. The dagger in his hand stabbed into Xiaoping's body and was immediately blocked by a layer of qi. What? Tang Mingqian simply couldn't believe it. His eyes widened as he stared at the dagger in his hand. The piercing power that should have been able to pierce through any defense was actually blocked by the layer of qi around Xiaoping's body. He didn't feel like he was stuck in a human's body, but a ball of cotton instead. It was like he was stuck in a sea of seawater. All the strength in his body was completely swallowed up. It was as if his power was being devoured by a kunpeng. Moreover, a tyrannical whirlpool power came from Xiaoping's body, continuously spinning. The dagger in his hand was tightly sucked in, and it was impossible for him to break free even if he wanted to. Impossible. What kind of defensive technique did you cultivate to be able to resist my assassination? Tang Mingqian was dumbfounded. His assassination technique, which had never failed, was useless in front of Xiaoping. A fatal blow, but it couldn't even break this kid's defense. In this case, how could he kill Xiaoping? Immediately, his confidence suffered a serious blow and he collapsed. Noisy. Xiaoping looked at Tang Mingqian indifferently. His spiritual power spread around. He had long sensed the small movements of Tang Mingqian and Panda, but he ignored them. Because the strength of Dark North's defensive technique was beyond their imagination, he let the two of them move, and then controlled the two of them beside him. In this way the two of them would never be able to escape. With a backhand, a huge palm of magic power appeared in the air and descended from the sky. Like the palm of Buddha, it crushed down fiercely, covering a radius of 3 miles. Not good, run. Panda and Tang Mingqian's faces changed drastically. They felt the tyrannical power of this palm. It was like a huge black and white millstone crushing down, enough to obliterate anything. But they were too close to Xia Ping. No matter how fast they were, it was impossible to escape. Dong. As soon as he finished speaking, the giant palm crushed down, like a giant slapping an ant to death. The surrounding air shook as if it had been destroyed thousands of times. It was also as if the sky had collapsed, and there was nowhere to escape. Ah! Panda and Tang Mingqian let out a shrill scream. They felt that the destructive power was passing down inch by inch from the void, seeping into every corner of their bodies. It was as if every cell had suffered a destructive blow. In the next second, the two of them disappeared from the virtual battlefield and died on the spot. Panda, Tang Mingqian, you two lost too? At this moment, Kerr and the others immediately saw that Panda and Tang Mingqian were expelled from the virtual network, which proved that the two of them had also been eliminated by Xia Ping. Yes, we lost. That kid is simply a monster. Panda and Tang Mingqian were both very depressed. They thought that this was a sure kill move, and ordinary people wouldn't be able to withstand it at all. Who knew that this guy had cultivated an abnormal level of defensive cultivation technique, and even with their attack power they couldn't penetrate it. If that was the case, what was the point of fighting? Who could defeat this monster? It can't be. Both of you have lost. Doesn't that mean that all of us have been eliminated? That guy really fought against 10 of us? Ba Tu's face turned green. Previously they thought that it would be a piece of cake for them to fight 10 against 1. There was absolutely no reason for them to lose. But now something like this had happened. It was really embarrassing. No, LV1Ho hasn't lost yet. From the beginning until now, he has been standing on the same spot and hasn't made a move. Tang Mingqian said in a deep voice, his eyes gleaming. You guys also know that we are not on the same level as LV1Ho. Perhaps the hope of defeating that monster lies with LV1Ho. After all, he is also a monster who has mastered the LV family's Saint-level unique skill, Sky-Splitting Halberd. Saint-level unique skill, Sky-Splitting Halberd. Everyone couldn't help but feel a chill. Legend had it that it was a unique skill created by the LV family's saint. Once successfully cultivated, it would have the power to split heaven and earth and be invincible. Chapter 11:23. At this moment in the virtual battlefield, only Xia Ping and LV1Ho were left on the battlefield. The two of them faced each other from afar. Alright, those small fries have left. It's finally my turn to fight you and me. With a boom, LV1Ho took out a halberd. He was more than 2 meters tall, which wasn't considered tall compared to the giants. But standing there, he exuded a mountain-like aura that no one could surpass. It was also extremely heavy, as if gravity had changed with his body as the center, producing a strong sense of oppression. Small fries. Hearing this, Ku'er and the others were so angry that they wanted to beat this bastard up. They were all companions, but he called them small fries. It was too hurtful. But now that they had all been eliminated, there was nothing they could do even if they wanted to refute. If you had chosen to attack just now, you might have been able to cause some damage to me. Now you have no chance. Xia Ping stood with his hands behind his back, looking at LV1Ho calmly. Cut the crap. Take my halberd first. LV1Ho didn't waste any time talking to Xia Ping. He picked up the halberd and slashed at the void. Boom. This halberd burst forth with a terrifying destructive power. A sharp cold light streaked across the void, sweeping across as if it was going to split the sky in half. Although the audience outside the battlefield weren't there, they could feel how terrifying this halberd was through the screen. It seemed to be able to pass through space and transmit a threatening chill to everyone's heart. If they were in LV1Ho's shoes, they would probably be split in half by this halberd in an instant. The LV family's secret art, heaven-splitting halberd, is indeed extraordinary. Rumor has it that when this secret art is cultivated to a high level, it can split the stars with a light strike. It has the might of an overlord and is invincible. Back then the ancestor of the LV family was a sage. He used this secret art to defeat many sages. Unfortunately, he entered a certain universe mystic realm and died. Since then the LV family has declined. Even if it has declined, there are still a few nails in a rotten ship. This secret art, heaven-splitting halberd, is one of the LV family's legacies. I didn't expect LV Wunho to obtain it, master it and carry it forward. I wonder how the great yin-yang tablet-breaking palm will compare with the heaven-splitting halberd. Many of the elders discussed spiritedly. They could immediately tell that LV Wunho's attack was extraordinary. Not only did it contain a terrifying penetrative power, but it also contained a spiritual attack. As the halberd slashed over, it felt as though it was going to cleave one's soul in half. No matter how one tried to defend against it, it was useless. Great yin-yang tablet smashing hand. In that instant, Xia Ping could also sense the threat emanating from LV Wunho. This halberd strike was terrifying beyond imagination. This LV Wunho was completely different from the previous 9. He was a true demon and had to be prepared. He slapped out with his palm and the yin and yang qi gathered together. It was like a giant's hand reaching out from the void, grabbing at the halberd like an eagle grabbing a chicken. The two powers collided, and the yin-yang power and the tearing power collided. It was like a comet hitting the earth, and a massive explosion immediately sounded out. Dong. Immediately, a huge pit with a diameter of more than 10 kilometers appeared on the ground. The surrounding gravel was shaken into powder and crackled. There was even a terrifying crack that extended for more than 10 kilometers, forming a bottomless abyss that seemed to have split the earth into two. However, this was just the beginning. In an instant, the two of them engaged in an intense battle. Bang bang bang. In midair, the two figures kept colliding. Fists and halberds kept colliding. It was like meteorites exploding from the sky to the ground, and then from the ground to the sky. In just a few minutes, the two of them had exchanged hundreds of blows, and each of them used their full strength. Immediately, a huge pit appeared on the ground. It was like the surface of the moon, and there was a loud rumble. The surrounding gravel was shaken into powder, and it was a mess. So strong. Kuer and the others were shocked. They seemed to have seen two monsters colliding. This was a battle that wasn't even on the same level as them. It was too terrifying. A casual strike from LV Wunho seemed to have the power to tear the sky apart. A casual punch from Xia Ping had the power to shatter stars. If they were in the middle of the battle between the two of them, they would probably be torn to pieces in an instant. Even Kuer and the others were so shocked, let alone the other outer sect disciples. They were all dumbfounded and their minds were completely blank. Many of their senior brothers and sisters had solemn expressions. Although the two of them had just entered the sect, they all knew that it wouldn't take long for these two monsters to reach their current realm. At that time, it would probably be these two people's turn to compete with them. This wasn't so far in the future, but it was within reach. It seems that a peerless genius has really appeared in the LV family this time. He can't be underestimated. Many elders' eyes suddenly lit up. Although this was only a low-level battle, they could also see that the two of them had infinite potential. They were like two young lions and sooner or later they would rule the world. Dong. After another collision, the two of them instantly separated and faced each other from a distance. The aura of the two sides collided, shaking the ground to the point that countless cracks appeared and cracking sounds could be heard. Xia Ping, you really deserve my full strength. In this way, I don't need to worry about killing you in an instant. Feeling that Xia Ping could easily block his violent power, LV Wunho wasn't shocked. Instead he laughed. Suddenly, the aura of his body rose several times, and the blood in his body seemed to be boiling. His body also instantly grew a few meters taller, and his muscles swelled, bulging like rocks. It was as if he had transformed into a giant. Vaguely, the surrounding audience seemed to feel that they were hallucinating. It was as if LV Wunho had transformed into a ghost god that walked out of hell, and his body was surrounded by a black aura twisting the air. His clothes were also shattered, and there seemed to be a black aura on his skin, covering his whole body. The scales were clear and there was a dragon head on his chest, as if there was a black dragon wrapped around him. What? Xia Ping narrowed his eyes and looked at LV Wunho. He instinctively felt that the threat from LV Wunho was several times stronger than before. It was as if this was the real LV Wunho, who had erupted with his full strength. At this moment, every inch of LV Wunho's muscles was filled with ghostly power. He held the halberd tightly, and even though he hadn't made a move yet, everyone could feel a violent and domineering aura soaring into the sky. It seemed that anyone who dared to stand in front of the overlord would be killed by the halberd. Can't be the body of a ghost god. Could it be that this LV Wunho has cultivated the legendary body of a ghost god? Many elders were shocked. Even though they were experienced and knowledgeable, they were still shocked by the scene in front of them. LV1Ho's current strength was beyond their imagination. Chapter 11:24. Several days later. Yanhuang Peak in a quiet room. Xiaoping had won over 1,000 yin-yang pills from Ku Er and the others. He did not exchange them for anything but used them to cultivate. He planned to break through to the fulfillment realm in one go. After the battle with LV1Ho and the others, he felt that he had touched the threshold of the fulfillment realm. With the help of 1,000 yin-yang pills he was confident. Whoosh! Xiaoping swallowed the yin-yang pills one by one. He circulated the pure yang everlasting art, and these yin-yang pills were immediately refined into large amounts of medicinal qi, which surged into every corner of his body. Then these medicinal qi were rapidly converted into spiritual power, greatly increasing the spiritual power in his purple kingdom. Because of the increase in spiritual power, the space in his purple kingdom also expanded and opened up bit by bit. After an unknown period of time, when the spiritual power reached its peak, there was a boom. Xiaoping felt his body shake violently. This sound was like a huge explosion that split the heavens and earth. Xiaoping felt that his soul had undergone an earth-shattering change. At this moment, it was as though his soul had left his body, and was constantly spreading outwards, affecting the entire Yanhuang Peak. Such spiritual waves were constantly vibrating. Every tree, every blade of grass, every bug, and even every grain of sand on Yanhuang Peak were all enveloped by his spiritual power and could be seen clearly. It was as though he had an extra eye on his body. Everything that his spiritual power covered was in his grasp. Divine sense. Xiaoping instantly understood that this was the power of divine sense. At this moment he had already stepped into the fulfillment realm. His spiritual power had already transformed to a whole new level. Once one reached the fulfillment realm, one could completely control the power of divine sense. This was like opening a third eye in the human body. Some people called it the opening of the sky eye. However, this was not a real eye but an illusory eye. It was an eye created by divine sense. It could allow one to observe the entire world from 360 degrees without any blind spots. For a martial artist, the soul was extremely important. Only a strong soul could control the violent and turbulent spiritual power. If an ordinary person had spiritual power, but did not have a soul that could control the spiritual power, then there would only be one outcome, and that was to explode from the overload of spiritual power. Their body would explode and they would die. After advancing to the fulfillment realm, the space of the purple mansion was twice as big as before. The spiritual power produced was simply unimaginable. If one did not have the power of divine sense to control it, they would be like a soldier encountering a riot. Their body would not be able to withstand it. Is this divine sense? Xiaoping closed his eyes. He felt that the space of his purple mansion was twice as big as before. The spiritual power was surging. It was like a sea encountering a violent storm, making crashing sounds. Such a huge amount of spiritual power, if it was an ordinary person, they would not be able to control it a long time ago. However, under the power of his powerful divine sense, it was as tame as a continuous stream. It was like there was a divine needle placed in the depths of the sea of the purple mansion. It stabilized all the spiritual power and completely controlled it. If I condense it into divine sense, it seems that ordinary illusions can't affect me at all. Xiaoping's eyes flickered. The power of divine sense was many times more powerful than ordinary spiritual power. One was equivalent to a liquid, while the other was equivalent to a mist. This was a qualitative change. If it was before, spiritual power would not be able to penetrate some ordinary matter. However, with the realm of divine sense he could easily penetrate through. Even if it was a psychedelic array he could clearly see through it. It would not affect him at all. Of course, that was only an ordinary psychedelic array. The universe was vast and endless. There would also be some tyrannical arrays that were enough to deceive divine sense. Even martial artists with divine sense would not be able to discover them. However, such arrays were very rare. Ordinary people would not be able to come into contact with them. It can actually affect the material world? Xiaoping was shocked. He found that his huge power of divine sense was slowly converging and condensing into one. Immediately, many weapons were arranged in the quiet room. For example, swords, spears, axes, and other weapons were trembling. It was as if an invisible hand had grabbed all of them and slowly lifted them up. Even the sand and soil on the ground were trembling. The surrounding air was distorted. This was not the effect of magic power. It was purely the power of divine sense. So that's how it is. The legendary sword immortal who could fly on a sword must have done it this way. Xia Ping suddenly realized. He finally understood how flying on a sword was. When a sword immortal was powerful to a certain extent, his divine sense could refine the flying sword. Then he could directly fly on a sword and travel thousands of miles away. However, if he wanted to reach the level of flying on a sword at will, he probably would not be able to do it at the fulfillment realm. At the very least, he would need to be above the transcendent realm and wait for his divine sense to take another step forward. However, that was only for ordinary martial artists. For Xia Ping, who was many times more tyrannical than ordinary martial artists, his divine sense was extremely powerful. With just a slight movement, hundreds of weapons in the quiet room trembled and directly floated in the air. The next second, Xia Ping's divine will moved, and these weapons instantly flew out, like a sports car at full speed. Dong dong dong. Suddenly, these weapons stabbed into the wall as if they were piercing through tofu. In the air, there was a buzzing sound as the weapons trembled. Even these weapons made of ordinary iron could not withstand such power, and cracks began to appear on them. Such strong power. Xia Ping was shocked. If he could familiarize himself with the control of divine sense, he could instantly control hundreds of weapons and attack the enemy at the same time. This was equivalent to having hundreds of doppelgangers. Moreover, this was a long-range attack with endless power. Another few days passed. Xia Ping continued to familiarize himself with this new power and completely controlled his divine sense. He felt that after obtaining divine sense, his control over his magic power was even more superb. With just a thought, his magic power could transform into all kinds of birds and beasts. He could also condense them into 18 kinds of weapons. Moreover, they also had the sharpness of weapons. This was the fulfillment realm. It represented that a martial artist had complete control over his magic power. This was the realm of perfection, returning to the original state. If ordinary people wanted to reach this realm, they would need to spend at least a few decades. But now, with the help of the yin-yang pill and the 5 elemental liquids, Xia Ping saved a lot of time. Moreover, after gaining control of divine sense, Xia Ping found that the golden crow of hell cells in his body had also been unsealed. In total, he had unsealed 1,000 golden crow of hell cells. This made the golden crow of hell bloodline in his body even thicker. It kept refining his body, getting closer to the golden crow of hell body. It was as if every drop of blood had turned into flames. Chapter 11:25. Although everyone thought that Xia Ping would definitely lose, for some reason Xia Ping did not feel that he would lose at all. It had been a long time since he had suffered such a serious injury. Even though this was in the virtual world, it was not much different from the real world. This was a spiritual projection, as if his real body had descended. At this moment he felt the ghostly aura from LV1Ho. The blood in the depths of his body seemed to be boiling like lava, and a terrifying heat burst out from his body. Wisps of flames came out from the 108,000 pores on his body, as if he had turned into a man of fire. Stimulated by the ghostly body, the golden crow of hell cells in Xia Ping's body also seemed to have awakened. The will in the depths of the cells seemed to have gone berserk, as if a divine beast had awakened. What? With a swoosh, LV1Ho had wanted to follow up his victory and finish off Xia Ping with his halberd, but his body gave him a terrifying warning. He instantly retreated several kilometers, looking at Xia Ping from afar. His eyes flickered. What exactly happened? LV1Ho took the warning from the ghostly body very seriously. This was not an aimless shot, but the instinct of a warrior. This instinct had saved him countless times, and this time was no exception. Although he did not know what had happened, in order to avoid danger, it was better to stay away. It would not be too late to attack after he found out what had happened. The ghostly body? I didn't expect there to be such a martial arts method in the world. A glimmer of light flashed in Xia Ping's eyes. He was very excited, as if he had seen a new world. Boom. He operated the technique in his body, and the blood in his body seemed to have turned into lava, rumbling. Countless scarlet flames emerged from his body, and with his body as the center, the area within a radius of several hundred meters was covered in lava. At this moment, a pair of huge black wings appeared on his back, all condensed from black flames, emitting evil, corrosive, ancient, chaotic, and other auras. His eyes turned into flames, spinning like chaos. Golden light shot out in all directions, containing the swastika symbol. Vaguely, there seemed to be a divine bird singing, stretching its black wings. It was like a sun in the sky, rising from the east, covering the land within a radius of dozens of miles. Even his body had undergone a huge change. It was as if he was condensed from flames. Dense and mysterious golden patterns had appeared on his skin, seemingly containing a strange and tyrannical power. This was Xiaoping's golden crow hell physique. Initially, Xiaoping did not realize that as his cultivation level continued to increase, the golden crow of hell bloodline in his body had become thicker and thicker, and he had long been able to condense the golden crow of hell body. Now, after the stimulation of the ghost god's body, the infernal golden crow cells in his body were greatly threatened. Xiaoping was suddenly inspired and completed the evolution. Although the infernal golden crow physique was only at the small success stage, it still contained divine might like a divine body. What a powerful force! Xiaoping clenched his fists. He felt as if he had transformed into a golden crow of hell. Every single cell in his body was condensed from fire energy. As long as the flames on his body were not completely extinguished, he would not die. He could even devour the flames of the world to heal his wounds. It was as if he had reached an immortal state. Although this was just an illusion, it was enough to prove how powerful this state was. He could feel that he could control the flame energy between heaven and earth with a casual move. Shi Yan's control over flames was several times stronger than before. The essence of the sun, the flame of life, the flame of earth spirit flame, and the flame of drought demon in the depths of his body all started to burn. They were like 4 energy sources, continuously providing him with a great amount of energy. No way. What happened to this kid? Many people were dumbfounded. Even through the screen they could feel how powerful Xiaoping was. The flames seemed to be able to penetrate through space to attack. They felt as if their souls were being burned and stung. With Xiaoping as the center, the temperature within a radius of hundreds of feet was too high. Even the air was distorted from the heat. A large amount of lava appeared on the ground, which kept bubbling. Could it be that he has also developed a special constitution? His whole body is exploding with flames, his blood is turning into lava, a pair of wings on his back, there are birds singing, and the sun is shining in the sky. What kind of constitution is this? Could it be the fire god body, the lava body, or the immortal phoenix body? No, it is completely different from the fire constitutions in the legends. I have never heard of it before. I can also feel that this special characteristic is stronger than any fire constitutions I have seen before. Could it be that there is another powerful holy constitution in the world? The universe is extremely vast and there are countless mysteries. It isn't strange for it to appear. Many Qinghuan sect's elders were all astonished. Even though they had seen many powerful holy constitutions with different abilities, they had never seen a constitution like Xiaoping's. However, they could sense how powerful this kind of constitution was. It was constantly emitting destructive, burning, darkness and other auras. It was as if it was a war machine born for destruction and destruction. Even Hell's Azura was nothing more than this. But when these people took a closer look, they could sense an exuberant vitality. It seemed to contain powerful life force, able to bestow endless vitality to all living things. This strange feeling of life and death, heaven and hell, fusing together made them feel extremely uncomfortable. However, they also felt that it was extremely compatible with nature. It was extremely mysterious. This damn Xiaoping has also developed a special constitution. It seems that its might isn't inferior to the ghost god body. How can ordinary people like us live? What's the point of becoming so powerful all the time? This is too exaggerated. Even if he is a monster, he shouldn't be so monstrous. Is the disciple of a saint able to scare people like this? The many outer sect disciples were all stunned. This was especially so for Kuer and the others. Their faces turned green. They originally thought that the gap between them and Xiaoping and LV1Ho wasn't that big. But from the looks of it now, the difference was like heaven and earth. He was able to beat them up without activating his special constitution. Look at what happened now. As expected, you still have great power in your body. If not, it would be meaningless. Come and fight. LV1Ho's eyes shone with a terrifying light. The aura on his body became even more berserk. The indistinct ghost god behind him became even clearer. It was like it wanted to break open the door from the depths of hell. With a halberd in hand, it would slaughter all enemies in the world. With a swoosh, his body was like a cannonball. He instantly appeared in front of Xiaoping and slashed down with the halberd. This really had a hint of the beginning stages of splitting the heavens and earth. Xiaoping was expressionless. His eyes were like spinning suns, blazing with flames. He suddenly stretched out his hand like a golden crow's claw, grabbing the halberd just like that. Dong. The two forces clashed crazily but instantly turned invisible. What? Chapter 11:26. What kind of temperature is this? LV Wenho's eyes widened. He had never felt such a terrifying heat before. It was as if he was close to the sun. He was like a moth flying into a flame. The terrifying, scorching flames instantly enveloped his body, as if to evaporate all the water on his body. The soil on the ground was instantly evaporated, turning into a dry land without a single drop of water. If this went on, he would definitely be roasted to death by the fire and turned into a dried corpse. Even his ghostly body seemed to be unable to withstand this scorching energy. It was as if this heat could instantly burn his ghostly power and melt his energy. Dodge. Out of the instinct of a warrior, LV Wenho immediately wanted to give up the Fangtian halberd in his hand and retreat. He had to keep a certain distance from this dangerous person. But it was already too late. Xia Ping attacked in that instant, punching the air, shaking it and causing it to tremble. This punch was a flame fist condensed from flames. It was like a blow from the fire god as fast as lightning. Not good. LV Wenho's expression changed drastically. He felt a fatal crisis. With a boom, he felt his abdomen being pierced by a flame fist. Even the defensive power of the ghostly body could not withstand it. A large amount of flames even appeared in his abdomen. In an instant, his body seemed to be melted into magma, and the power of every inch of the flames covered every cell in his body. Moreover, he felt that the power of the flames had even begun to burn his soul. Boom. LV Wenho revealed a pained expression. His body could not withstand it at all. He flew backward in the air with a hole in his abdomen. He flew directly for dozens of kilometers. Even the flames enveloped his body. As he flew, they gradually devoured his physique. From a few meters tall to 2 meters tall, 1 meter tall, and then to the size of a watermelon, he continued to burn. After flying for dozens of kilometers, the entire ghostly body was finally burned to ashes by the flames. With a gust of wind, he disappeared from the virtual battlefield just like that. I lost. In the next second, LV Wenho's soul returned to his body. He was sweating profusely, and there was a trace of shock in his eyes. It seemed that he did not expect to lose the competition so quickly. With just one strike, his opponent had pierced through his abdomen. The flames that seemed to have emerged from the depths of hell instantly burned his body into ashes. Even if he wanted to resist, there was nothing he could do. He was completely killed in one hit. It was extraordinary. Even my ghost god body can't withstand it. Just what kind of flame power is this? LV Wenho was very shocked. He originally thought that by relying on his ghost god body, he could sweep away all enemies and sweep away everything in his way. He didn't expect that he would encounter such a terrifying monster right after arriving at the Cosmos faction. That monster was only at the Violet Palace realm, yet he was able to challenge someone of a higher cultivation realm and beat him to the point where he didn't even have the strength to fight back. I will not admit defeat. Next time I will definitely defeat you. Although he had lost, LV Wenho clenched his fists tightly. He wasn't dejected at all. Instead, his eyes were filled with battle intent. This was the LV family's disciples. The more they fought, the stronger they became. The match is over, Xia Ping wins. At this moment in the virtual world, a mechanical voice rang out in midair. The system had determined that LV Wenho and the others had been eliminated, and Xia Ping had won this round. With a swoosh, Xia Ping also left the virtual world. His soul returned to his body. My god, what exactly happened just now? Just a single strike actually defeated LV Wenho and pierced through his ghost god body. This is too violent. What kind of physique is that? Why is it so terrifying? Even the ghost god body can't block it. I'm not sure, but I can be sure that the power is absolutely terrifying. Even through the screen I can feel the destructive power of that flame. It's simply born for destruction. That's right. The ghost god body was slowly burned into ashes by the flame. Luckily this is the virtual world. If this was the real world, LV Wenho would have been killed by a single punch. Many of the Cosmos faction's disciples were stunned. They originally thought that both sides would continue fighting for another 300 rounds until both sides were exhausted. Only then would the victor be decided. But who would have thought that Xia Ping could defeat LV Wenho with just a single strike? This greatly exceeded their expectations. Wait, if LV Wenho lost the match, doesn't that mean that Xia Ping won? He defeated 10 by himself. Someone heard the virtual system's voice and immediately thought of this question. That's right. The battle earlier was too intense. I almost forgot that Xia Ping was fighting against 10 alone. My god, he can even win like that. He's simply a monster. I can only say that as expected of the saint's disciple. We can't compare at all. No wonder even the Dark North Saint made an exception and personally recruited him as his final disciple. Without a doubt, he's a seed of the saint. After this battle, who would dare to doubt Xia Ping? He will undoubtedly be the #1 expert among the new students. Just a new student? I reckon that it won't be long before the positions of our senior brothers and sisters will be threatened. Many of the Cosmos faction's disciples were completely convinced. Martial arts and literature were different. There was no #1 in literature, but there was no #2 in martial arts. Because, whether one's martial arts was strong or not, one would know after a single battle. If one's strength was weak, it would be impossible for them to play tricks in an intense and dangerous battle. There was nothing better than a battle to prove the difference in strength. Previously, there were people who said that Xia Ping was arrogant to fight against 10 alone, but now no one dared to say this. The iron-like facts had proven this point. Invincibility wasn't just nonsense. The eyes of many of the Cosmos faction's senior brothers and sisters flickered. They could also feel the danger of the latecomers overtaking them. Xia Ping might only be at the Purple Mansion realm now, but it was only a matter of time before he advanced to the Fulfillment realm and Divine realm. We actually lost even when fighting 10 against 1. This is simply too embarrassing. We didn't lose unjustly. Even LV Wenho, who grasped the ghost god body, was killed in a single punch. We didn't lose unjustly either. That's true, but if this continues, we will still lose. Are you guys willing to accept this? Of course not. So what if he's the saint's disciple? We aren't trash who can only watch his back view advance. Next time in the next battle, we definitely won't lose so badly. Ku-air and the others clenched their fists and gritted their teeth. As the geniuses of various planets and clans, they were used to being invincible since young. Who would have thought that they would encounter such a huge setback after coming to the Cosmos faction? It was impossible for them to surrender just because of a single defeat. All of them stood up and planned to cultivate. They had to catch up to this monster, Xia Ping, and never submit. The disciples this year are truly not bad. Chapter 11:27. A few days later. Yin Huang Peak in a quiet room. Xia Ping won thousands of yin yang pills from Ku-air and the others. He did not exchange them for anything but used them to cultivate. He planned to break through to the Fulfillment realm in one go. After the battle with LV Wenho and the others, he felt that he had touched the threshold of the Fulfillment realm. With the help of thousands of yin yang pills, he was confident. Whoosh! Xia Ping swallowed the yin yang pills one by one. He circulated the pure yang immortal art. These yin-yang pills were immediately refined into a large amount of medicinal qi, which surged into every corner of his body. Then these medicinal qi were quickly converted into spiritual power, greatly increasing the spiritual power of the Purple Palace. Because of the increase in spiritual power, the Purple Palace space also expanded and opened up. After an unknown period of time, when the spiritual power reached the peak, there was a boom. Xia Ping felt his body shake violently. This sound was like a huge bang that split the sky and earth. Xia Ping felt that his soul had undergone an earth-shattering change. It was as if his soul had left his body and was constantly spreading, affecting the entire Yin Huang Peak. This kind of spiritual fluctuation trembled unceasingly. Every tree, every weed, every bug, and even every grain of sand on Yin Huang Peak were all enveloped by this spiritual power. Even the slightest detail could be seen clearly. It was as if he had an extra eye on his body. Everything covered by the spiritual power was under his control. Spiritual power. Xia Ping instantly understood that this was the power of spiritual power. At this moment he had already stepped into the Fulfillment realm. His spiritual power had transformed to a new level. Once one reached the Fulfillment realm, one could completely control the power of spiritual power. This was like opening a third eye in the human body. Some people called it the opening of the sky eye. However, this was not a real eye but an illusory eye. It was an eye formed by spiritual power. It allowed one to observe the entire world from 360 degrees without any blind spots. For martial artists, the soul was extremely important. Only a strong soul could control the violent and turbulent spiritual power. If an ordinary person had spiritual power, but did not have a soul to control it, then there was only one outcome. That was to explode from the spiritual power and die from the explosion of the body. After advancing to the fulfillment realm, the space of his purple palace realm had doubled in size compared to before. The amount of magic power that was produced was simply unimaginable. If he didn't have the power of his consciousness to control it, he would be like a soldier encountering a riot. His body wouldn't be able to withstand it at all. Is this the divine sense? Xiaoping closed his eyes. He could feel that the space in his Zifu had doubled in size compared to before. His magic power was surging violently. It was as if the sea had encountered a violent storm. Such a huge amount of magic power, if replaced by an ordinary person, they would have long been unable to control it, but under the tyrannical power of his spiritual sense, it was tame like a continuous stream. It was as if there was a sea-stabilizing divine needle placed in the depths of the Zifu Sea, stabilizing all the spiritual energy and completely controlling it. If I condense my divine sense, it seems that ordinary illusions can't affect me at all. Xiaoping's eyes flickered. The power of divine sense was many times stronger than ordinary spiritual force. One was equivalent to a liquid, while the other was equivalent to a mist. This was a qualitative change. If it was before, his mental power would not be able to penetrate some ordinary matter, but with the realm of divine sense, he could easily penetrate it. Even if it was a psychedelic array, he could clearly see through it and it would not affect him. Of course, that was just an ordinary psychedelic array. The universe was vast and endless. There would also be some tyrannical arrays that could deceive divine sense. Even martial artists with divine sense wouldn't be able to discover them. But such arrays were very rare, and ordinary people wouldn't be able to come into contact with them. And it can actually affect the material world? Xiaoping was shocked. He found that his huge power of divine sense was slowly gathering and condensing into one. Immediately, many weapons were arranged in the quiet room. For example, sabers, swords, spears, axes, and other weapons were all trembling. It was as if there was an invisible hand grabbing all of them and then slowly rising. Even the sand and soil on the ground were trembling, and the surrounding air was distorted. This wasn't the effect of magic power, but purely the power of divine sense. So that's how it is. The legendary sword immortal who could fly on a sword probably did it this way. Xiaoping suddenly realized. He finally knew how to fly on a sword. When a sword immortal was strong to a certain extent, his divine sense could refine the flying sword, and he could directly fly on a sword and travel thousands of miles away. But to reach the level of flying on a sword, fulfillment realm probably wouldn't be able to do it. Perhaps it would at least need to be above the divine power realm. But that was only for ordinary martial artists. For Xiaoping, who was many times stronger than ordinary martial artists, his current divine sense was extremely powerful. He just moved slightly, and hundreds of weapons in the quiet room trembled and directly floated in the air. In the next second, Xiaoping's divine sense moved, and these weapons instantly flew out like a sports car at full speed. Dong dong dong. Suddenly, these weapons stabbed into the wall as easily as piercing tofu. In the air, there was a buzzing sound and constant trembling. Even these weapons made of ordinary iron couldn't withstand such power, and a trace of cracks appeared. So strong. Xiaoping was shocked. If he could familiarize himself with divine sense, he could instantly control hundreds of weapons and attack the enemy at the same time. This was equivalent to having hundreds of doppelgangers. And this was a long-range attack with infinite power. Another few days passed. Xiaoping constantly familiarized himself with the new power and completely controlled his divine sense. He felt that after obtaining divine sense, his control of magic power was even more superb. With just a thought, his magic power could transform into all kinds of birds and beasts, and he could also condense into 18 kinds of weapons, and they also had the sharpness of weapons. This was the fulfillment realm, which represented that a martial artist had complete control of magic power. This was the realm of perfection, returning to the natural state. If ordinary people wanted to reach this realm, they would need at least decades of effort. But now, with the help of the yin-yang pill and the 5 elemental liquids, Xiaoping saved a lot of time. And after controlling divine sense, Xiaoping found that the golden crow hell cells in his body were also unsealed. In total, he unsealed 1,000 golden crow hell cells. This made the golden crow hell bloodline in his body thicker, and it constantly tempered his body, getting closer to the golden crow hell body. It was as if every drop of blood had turned into flames. Chapter 11:28. The next day in a living room of Yanhuang Peak. There was a lot of food on the dining table. They were all medicinal cuisines made from various precious herbs and ferocious beast meat that contained a huge amount of energy. When ordinary warriors ate it, they would be able to strengthen their vitality and increase their body's potential. It would have a subtle transformation effect and could even strengthen their magic power. These were all medicinal cuisines cooked in the Universe Sect's canteen. However, most disciples had to pay Universe dollars to eat the food in the canteen. Each meal cost a lot, at least 100 Universe dollars. If accumulated over time, it would be a huge number. However, Xiaoping was a disciple of a saint. Hence, the food in the Universe Sect was free. He could eat as much as he wanted. There were many benefits. Munch munch, Xiaoping wolfed down the food. There were already hundreds of plates on the table. It was equivalent to eating dozens of people's worth of food. However, his stomach didn't seem to get any bigger. This was because he had awakened the golden crow of hell's stomach. At this moment, his stomach was like a furnace. When the medicinal cuisines entered his stomach, they would be quickly digested and turned into vitality. Hence, his appetite was different from ordinary people. He could be called a super big eater. This feels great. Xiaoping finished the last dish. He took a deep breath and felt his stomach warm. His body was filled with energy. The food could be considered as making up for the deficit of vitality in his body and replenishing his energy. All right. How's the restoration of the myriad stars? Xiaoping asked Corinne. It's very smooth. It's still in the process of restoration. I reckon it won't be long before we can truly start the myriad stars, Corinne said excitedly. That's good. Xiaoping was also looking forward to it. He wanted to pilot this saint-grade spaceship and roam the universe. All right. Since you've advanced to the fulfillment realm, it's time to accept some missions to earn yin-yang pills. Otherwise, you might not be able to advance to the divine realm even if you spend 100 years just by breathing in the world's vitality. Corinne reminded him. Xiaoping had already consumed all the yin-yang pills in his previous cultivation. It could be said that he didn't have a single pill on him. He was already a pauper. Of course, he still had 200 million universe dollars. This amount of money could also be used to buy large amounts of precious elixirs. Advancing to the fulfillment realm would also be rewarded by the sect with 1,000 yin-yang pills. Even so, he still had to think of ways to earn more yin and yang pills. After all, he couldn't just reach the divine power realm. There were still treasure refinement realm, true fire realm, golden elixir realm, and so on. If he wanted to become a saint, he would need boundless resources. This would be unimaginable. What missions can I earn yin-yang pills? Xiaoping asked. He knew that in the process of his closed-door training, Corinne was not idle. Relying on the authority given by Xiaoping, he could inquire about all kinds of information about the Jianghu faction at will. It can be said that Corinne already has a very good understanding of Jianghu faction. He is equivalent to a super butler. No matter what question is asked, he can immediately answer it. The missions of the Heaven and Earth faction are also divided into grades. They are easy, dangerous, nightmare, and death. Corinne said, the lower the degree of danger, the less yin and yang dan can be obtained. Like ordinary outer court disciples, even if they complete a simple mission, they can only get one yin and yang dan. But because the mission isn't dangerous, it's a good choice for those who are cautious. But let's ignore these ordinary people for now. Over the past few days, I've repeatedly compared and finally picked out a good mission. You can take a closer look. With a ding-dong, a virtual image immediately appeared in front of Xiaoping. A death mission? Seeing this virtual image, Xiaoping raised his eyebrows. The entire image was in a blood-red state, and there was an exclamation mark, indicating the danger of this mission, reminding the person who accepted the mission not to act rashly. According to Corinne, the death rate of easy-level mission is 10%, dangerous-level mission is 30%, nightmare-level mission is 50%, but the death rate of death-level mission is more than 99%. Once they accepted this mission, they would almost certainly die. The content of the quest was very simple. There was only one requirement, and that was to head to the Blood Soul continent and obtain a soul stone. The reward was 100,000 yin and yang pills. However, such a mission had a 99% mortality rate. The number of people who had accepted this mission could be counted on one hand. Why is this mission so dangerous? Xiaoping looked at Corinne and asked. According to my investigation, the Blood Soul continent is a unique land among the 6 major starfields ruled by the Jianghu faction. Corinne said in a deep voice, this land was not formed naturally, but was created by a saint in ancient times, named Blood Soul Saint, using great magic power. The sky is round and the earth is square. The area of this land is extremely huge with a diameter of 3 light years. 3 light years? Xiaoping was shocked. A diameter of 3 light years? The area of such a land was simply unimaginably huge. It must be known that the distance traveled by light in a second was 300,000 kilometers, so how much distance could light travel in a year? Such a distance was simply an astronomical figure. It was estimated that the area of the Cloud Realm was far less than this Blood Soul continent. The most crazy thing about this continent is that it is rich in soul stones. Corinne said. What? Xiaoping was shocked. The so-called soul stone was a kind of strange stone that could enhance soul power. It must be known that in order to enhance soul power, in addition to natural aptitude, it was only possible to break through the martial arts realm or go through the tempering of life and death battles. However, soul stones could easily enhance human soul power without the need to go through life and death crises. One could imagine how great the attraction of this precious ore was for humans. It seems that the Blood Soul continent must have been destroyed. Xiaoping said. There were so many precious soul stones on this continent. In the face of the wolves in the universe as well as the saints who were eyeing covetously, it was simply impossible to resist. And this was the saying, an ordinary man is innocent, but a treasure becomes a crime. No, the Blood Soul continent is still alive, and there are countless creatures living there, with a population of more than 1 trillion. Corinne shook his head. What? Xiaoping asked. He was very curious. With such precious resources, it was actually not enslaved. It was too strange. Because there are unique creatures living on this continent. They call themselves the Soul Race. Corinne continued, these people of the Soul Race are said to be the descendants of the Blood Soul Saint. They are born with powerful soul power, and they are proficient in mental power attacks, killing people invisibly. Many universe martial artists entered the Blood Soul continent and were instantly killed by these people of the Soul Race, unable to escape. Chapter 1129. No, that's not right. Xiaoping shook his head. There are so many strong people in the universe and so many races. No matter how strong the Blood Soul mainland is, how can it resist the ferocious army of the universe? Putting everything else aside, just the sages alone are enough to destroy an entire continent countless times over. He felt that the Blood Soul mainland's secret was not just this. You're right. Corinne nodded. This continent was created by the Blood Soul Saint. There are unique rules of heaven and earth here. Like the Cloud Realm, cultivators above the Divine Realm are not allowed to appear. Once one appears, he or she will be struck by lightning and be destroyed instantly. There was once a lightning punishment realm cultivator who broke in, but he could not even resist for 2 hours and was struck to death by lightning. Countless martial artists in the universe are terrified of this place and it is listed as an absolute forbidden area. It revealed the information it had obtained. What about the sages? Did they not do anything? Xiaoping asked curiously. Corinne said, maybe he did, maybe he didn't, or maybe the saint has some kind of fear towards the Blood Soul Saint behind the Blood Soul continent. Anyway, this news has been blocked by a mysterious force. So far, not much information has been leaked. The Blood Soul mainland still exists, unharmed. Xiaoping touched his chin. Blood Soul Saint? Could it be that this sage is still alive? He felt that it was unlikely. If the Blood Soul Saint was still alive, it would not have been so easy for the Jianghu sect to rule over the 6 major starfields. I'm not sure. According to the news on the internet, the Blood Soul Saint disappeared. Some people say that he is not dead and is waiting for a chance to resurrect. Anyway, the Blood Soul Saint is very mysterious. Corinne said in a deep voice, I have also heard of the Blood Soul Saint's fame from Old Master. It is said that even among the saints, he is one of the strongest existences. Old Master admires him endlessly. He is a special existence. Although this place is in the 6 major starfields of the Jianghu sect, it seems to be listed as a forbidden area by many forces. Many sacred sects have joined forces to block it, not allowing martial artists in the universe to enter and leave. Only the disciples of the sacred sects can pass the trial mission and enter. Apart from them, no one else is qualified to enter. You can enter because of the Jianghu sect. It looked at Xiaoping. Xiaoping's eyes flickered. Blood Soul Saint, he finally remembered this name. Even though he didn't know how long it had been since he disappeared, he was still feared by countless saints and was listed as a taboo. One could imagine just how terrifying the Blood Soul Saint was before he disappeared. However, in this case one could imagine the secrets of the Blood Soul mainland. It was definitely something that even sages would value. However, if the Blood Soul continent really contains the mysteries of the sages, then it must be extremely dangerous. Will I encounter any trouble when I carry out this mission? Xiaoping said solemnly. He wasn't afraid of death, but that didn't mean he would mindlessly throw his life away. That was what a fool would do. You don't have to worry about that. Corinne was brimming with confidence. Your mental power is extremely powerful. I reckon that even a divine power realm cultivator would only be like this. Now that you have advanced to the fulfillment realm, you have the power of divine sense. In other words, even if you enter the Blood Soul continent, you'll be able to resist the various secret techniques of the Blood Soul continent without suffering any damage. After all, the strongest in the entire Blood Soul continent are divine power realm cultivators. With your strength, Xiaoping, it shouldn't be a problem for you to survive in this place. Xiaoping nodded. He agreed with Corinne. The reason why ordinary martial artists were harmed in the Blood Soul continent was because their mental power was too weak and could not withstand the secret technique attacks of the Soul clan in the Blood Soul continent. However, it was different for him. He was not afraid of this power at all. Moreover, entering the Blood Soul continent will not only allow you to obtain soul stones to strengthen your soul power, which is extremely beneficial for cultivation. Most importantly, there are many precious secret techniques of the spirit soul on this continent. Corinne said, if you enter it, then you'll have the opportunity to obtain these precious techniques of the spirit soul. When that time comes, you'll have many more trump cards. This is a mission that kills many birds with one stone. He stated his many considerations. Alright, then I'll carry out this mission. Hearing this, Xiaoping immediately made up his mind. Since this mission wasn't too dangerous for him and was extremely beneficial, there was no reason not to accept it. Ding dong, immediately he clicked on the mission list and accepted this death level mission. Warning, warning, this is your first time accepting a mission. According to the system's detection, this is a death level mission. There is more than a 90% chance of death. Have you considered the risks? The system's voice immediately sounded. This was an automatic warning issued by the Heaven and Earth Sect's AI system. Every time a disciple accepted a death level mission, it would issue a reminder. If the Heaven and Earth Sect disciple already knew the danger of this mission and understood the risks, and still insisted on carrying it out, then it had no reason to refuse. Yes, accept this mission immediately. Xiaoping clicked to confirm. Yes, Heaven and Earth Sect disciple Xiaoping has accepted the death level mission. Head to the Blood Soul continent. Mission confirmed. Good luck. With a ding-dong, the system's voice quickly disappeared. Ding. At this moment, Xiaoping's communicator rang. Is it Master? Xiaoping immediately saw that the name on the communicator was that of Dark North Saint. He had exchanged contact details with Dark North Saint before. However, he didn't expect that Dark North Saint would contact him at this time. Xiaoping immediately accepted the call, and Dark North Saint's virtual projection appeared in front of him. You just accepted the death level mission and plan to head to the Blood Soul continent? Dark North Saint was straightforward and didn't beat around the bush at all. Yes, Master, you found out so quickly? Xiaoping was shocked. He didn't expect his master to find out about this matter so soon after he accepted the mission. It was really too fast. The matter of you accepting the death level mission alarmed some elders, and they reported it to me. Dark North Saint nodded and briefly explained the reason. Is Master trying to stop me from accepting this mission? Xiaoping asked. No. Dark North Saint shook his head. Actually, even if you didn't accept this mission, I plan to let you go to the Blood Soul continent to train. There are big secrets in that place and it will be very beneficial for your growth. Moreover, your soul power is very strong, and you can even withstand the spiritual pressure of the heaven and earth wall. I believe that the many spiritual secret techniques in the Blood Soul continent are not very dangerous for you. Chapter 1130. Master, why are you here this time? Xiaoping looked at the Dark North Saint curiously. Although the Jianghu sect looks like the sun in the sky now, there are still many enemies in the dark. The Dark North Saint said in a deep voice, and since you've become my disciple, I'm sure many forces have their eyes on you. You might encounter unexpected danger when you're out on a mission this time. If you're killed by someone of the same generation, it only means that you're not skilled enough. But if some old farts disregard their reputation and secretly attack you, I definitely won't tolerate it. At this point he looked at Xia Ping. So, when you're out on a mission this time, I'll give you a talisman. If you encounter any unstoppable danger, you can use it immediately. It's equivalent to an attack from a sage. But there's only one. I hope you use it wisely because it'll be gone after you use it. Understand? Boom. As soon as he finished speaking, the Dark North Saint waved his hand. What? Instantly, Xia Ping was shocked because a wormhole suddenly appeared in front of him. Immediately, a golden talisman traveled through space and arrived in front of him. The golden talisman floated in mid-air, filled with a chaotic aura. It was extremely mysterious. Although he already knew that sages were unbelievably powerful, this move still gave him a huge shock. It was as if space did not exist for sages. They could open up space and travel through wormholes by themselves. At this level, they could survive freely in the universe without the need to breathe oxygen and could withstand most of the dangers in the universe. Thank you, Master. Xia Ping immediately recovered and quickly took the talisman. This was a huge trump card. With this talisman, he wouldn't have to worry about being killed by some old monsters. No wonder there were so many benefits to becoming a sage's disciple. With the protection of a sage as a master, it would be difficult to die even if one wanted to. A few days later, Xia Ping boarded the spaceship prepared by the Jianghu sect and headed to the Blood Soul continent. In these few days he made a lot of preparations to go to the Blood Soul continent. First, he stored a large amount of food and many weapons in his space ring in case of emergencies. He even put the moon god in his space ring as a trump card. As for the language problem in the Blood Soul continent, Xia Ping wasn't worried because the Blood Soul continent also used the universal language. Therefore he didn't have to worry about language problems. Lord Xia. Suddenly a staff member on the spaceship said to Xia Ping, "We've arrived at the Blood Soul continent. It's just ahead." Xia Ping looked outside. Through the virtual projection he could clearly see the scene outside the spaceship. Immediately, a boundless land stretched across the universe. It was like an eggshell enveloped by a huge air shield. There was a huge sun in the distance and the sunlight shone down, revealing a myriad of colors. Lord Xia. The staff member explained, the Blood Soul continent is a unique continent. The atmosphere above it has a mysterious power that produces a strong gravitational force. Without enough power, spaceships can't escape. That's why the living beings of the Blood Soul continent are basically unable to come out. Of course, the most important problem is that this continent restricts the strength of cultivators to Divinity Realm at most. Therefore, they do not have the power to break through the restrictions of this continent with their own strength. Xia Ping nodded. Suddenly, he saw that in the distance, in the sky above this continent, huge space battleships had appeared. They were like moons surrounding this continent. What are these things? Xia Ping asked curiously. They are space battleships sent by the major Saint-class sections. They are equipped with star destroyers that have the power to destroy a planet with one shot. There are thousands of them, and they are responsible for monitoring this continent to prevent the natives of the Blood Soul continent from causing trouble. The staff member said in a deep voice, of course at the same time, they are also to prevent outsiders from invading this continent. Without the permission of the Saint-class sects, no outsiders are allowed to enter. This is a very strong line of defense. Lord Xia, I've sent them a message and they have allowed us to pass. However, due to the restrictions of the mission, we can only send you to this place. Xia Ping nodded, indicating that he understood. After that, Lord Xia will enter the Blood Soul continent in a small spaceship. When you come out, you will also be relying on this small spaceship. I hope that Lord Xia will not let this spaceship be damaged, or it will be very difficult for you to come out. The staff member reminded, of course, Lord Xia is the disciple of the great ancestor. Even if the spaceship is damaged, you can contact us for help. When that happens, we will have people send in spaceships to pick up Lord Xia. At this point he was very jealous. This was the treatment of the disciples of the sages. If it was an ordinary disciple, no one would care about him or her. Anyway, if the spaceship was damaged, it would be his fault. There was no way to send people to rescue him. They could only die of old age in the Blood Soul continent. Alright, I got it. Xia Ping went to a warehouse of the battleship. There was a small spaceship that had been prepared for him. This small spaceship was prepared by the Jianghu sect. It was a means of transportation to enter the Blood Soul continent. However, this small spaceship only had the function of transportation. It did not have any attack or defense system. Even so, this small spaceship was very valuable in the universe. Let's go to the Blood Soul continent. Xia Ping boarded the small spaceship and immediately issued an order to the spaceship system. Whoosh. Immediately, the spaceship left the space battleship and flew toward the Blood Soul continent. At the same time, it also activated the optical camouflage system, changing the appearance of the entire spaceship. It turned into a meteor and instantly entered the Blood Soul continent. Just as Xia Ping entered the Blood Soul continent, many space battleships in the distant sky above the Blood Soul continent seemed to have received this signal and learned of the news. There is actually someone who dares to enter the Blood Soul continent? Is he looking to die? He doesn't know that there is a 99% death rate in there. Is this kid crazy? He is not crazy. He is Dark North Saint's personal disciple, Xia Ping. It is the young man who has caused a lot of commotion recently. I didn't expect him to dare to enter the Blood Soul continent. I can only say that he is the disciple of the sage. Dark North Saint might have given him some treasures. He is not afraid of the living beings in the Blood Soul continent at all. Naturally, he can live like a fish in water. Damn it. It is good to have a good master. He can do whatever he wants in such a dangerous place. You can't be jealous. It is your fault that you are not talented. Everyone discussed. They all knew that Xia Ping, a disciple of the sage of the Jianghu sect, had entered the Blood Soul continent. Chapter 1131. In the depths of the universe, inside a blood-colored planet, there was a huge and majestic palace. At this moment, there was a 10-meter-tall middle-aged man sitting on the throne in the palace. Beside him was a blood-red saber that was dozens of meters long. As he stood on the ground, he immediately gave off a violent bloody aura. It was as if the entire palace had turned into a blood-red hell, with countless evil spirits wailing in agony. There were 3 scars on his face, making him look extremely hideous. He also had a broken right arm. It was as if this body had experienced countless life and death battles and was weathered by wind and frost. If there were any almighty beings in the outside world who saw this middle-aged man, they would definitely be scared half to death. This was because this was the famous Mad Slaughter Saint in the universe, a saint-level expert. Legend has it that he was bloodthirsty and crazy. He once used a bad mood as an excuse to slaughter 3 planets, killing hundreds of billions of living beings, leaving nothing behind. That was why he was known as Mad Slaughter. He was revered by countless races like a god of death. However, due to some unforeseen event, he had disappeared for a long time, and many people had almost forgotten about his reputation. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. At this moment, 6 or 7 uninvited guests suddenly appeared in the palace. They all came to the blood-colored palace. These people came in all shapes and sizes. Some had fierce faces, some were bald, some were nuns, some had only 1 arm and some had only 1 eye. In short, they did not look like good people. They were the infamous assassins in the universe, known as the 7 Kills Gang. They were all experts at the divine power realm. Lord. However, these people did not dare to be arrogant in front of the Mad Slaughter Saint. They did not even dare to breathe loudly because the person in front of them was a saint. He could kill them dozens of times with just a breath. Do you know why I called you here? The Mad Slaughter Saint asked. I don't know, but as long as you tell us, we are willing to die. The 7 Kills Gang were all extremely obedient, not daring to show their usual arrogant expression. They were also scared to death because they did not come to this place willingly. Suddenly they were drinking in a tavern, but in the next second, they were captured and brought to this damned place without any ability to fight back. Not bad, a wise man submits to circumstances. Mad Slaughter Saint was very satisfied. I don't want to beat around the bush with you. I've heard of the reputation of your 7 Kills Gang before. You're a famous assassin. Since your debut you've killed countless people. Your mission completion rate is 100%. So, I personally came to find you. I want you to kill someone. Hearing this, the faces of the 7 Kills Gang turned green. Reputation was harmful. If not for their reputation, how could they have been targeted by this famous Mad Butcher Saint? Now, they had fallen into the hands of this saint who was many times more ferocious than them. They did not know what would happen to them. Who do you want to kill? The 7 Kills Gang and the others asked. They did not ask why Saint Kwang Tu did not personally kill the other party with his strength. Since Saint Kwang Tu did not make a move, there was naturally a reason that he did not want to say. That was why the Mad Slaughter Saint found small characters like them. It was foolish to ask these questions. They were also afraid of angering the Mad Slaughter Saint, so they were straightforward. Perhaps you have also heard of his name, Xia Ping. Mad Slaughter Saint said indifferently. Xia Ping? Hearing this, one of them was shocked. Could it be the disciple of the Dark North Saint, Xiaoping, who has caused a lot of commotion recently? Does Lord want to kill him? But he's not just an ordinary disciple? They all looked at Mad Slaughter Saint strangely. Yes, that kid is an ordinary disciple and he has no enmity with me. But the mistake is that he is the disciple of the Dark North Saint. Mad Slaughter Saint snorted coldly, his eyes revealing a terrifying cold light, as if it could pierce through the void, causing the 7 Kills gang to shiver. It was as if they were in the abyss of hell and they could take their lives at any time. Back then, the Dark North Saint came to find trouble with me for no reason. After fighting with him for 300 rounds, he cut off my right arm, and I have not been able to recover it until now. He touched his empty right arm, his hatred overflowing. For a saint, regrowing a severed arm was a trivial matter, but the right arm that was cut off by the Dark North Saint could not be recovered no matter what he did. There seemed to be a mysterious and tyrannical force preventing the cells in his body from regenerating. As a swordsman, the right hand was his strongest part, and he had cultivated for many years. But now that it was cut off by the Dark North Saint, it was equivalent to crippling a part of his strength. For a saint, this was simply a great humiliation. In that battle, if he had not escaped quickly, he would have been killed by the Dark North Saint. One could imagine that his hatred for the Dark North Saint could not be washed away by the water of the 3 rivers. But in terms of strength, Mad Slaughter Saint was not a match for the Dark North Saint before, not to mention that he had lost an arm, so he was even less of a match. Therefore he had no hope of revenge in this life. Therefore he wanted to take revenge on the children and grandchildren of the Dark North Saint, and even those related to him. The problem was that the Dark North Saint had lived for too long. His relatives were basically all dead and he was alone. Even if there was still the Jianghu sect, no matter how many disciples of the Jianghu sect died, the Dark North Saint would probably not feel heartache. Mad Slaughter Saint had never been able to find a chance to take revenge. Who would have thought that Xiaoping would suddenly appear out of nowhere and become the last disciple of the Dark North Saint? This made the Mad Slaughter Saint overjoyed, and thus he made Xiaoping his target. Even if he couldn't kill the Dark North Saint, he had to let the Dark North Saint experience the pain of losing his son. He had to let this last disciple of his die in his hands, and make this old bastard Dark North sad for the rest of his life. I have already set up a restriction on your bodies. Thinking of this, the Mad Slaughter Saint's gaze fell on the 7 of them and said, "Don't even think about escaping. If you dare to escape or if you don't complete the mission, it will immediately explode. Either that Xiaoping dies or you die. Of course, if you can complete the mission you will be able to obtain benefits, great benefits." He gave them a sweet date after hitting them with a stick. The faces of the 7 of them were ashen. They knew that they couldn't escape the palms of the Mad Slaughter Saint. Alright, but where is that Xiaoping? If he is at the headquarters of the Jianghu sect, we won't be able to enter and kill him. The 7 of them asked, indicating that if Xiaoping stayed in the Jianghu sect, they wouldn't be able to find an opportunity to assassinate him. Don't worry, I've already received news that Xiaoping has already left the Jianghu sect and went out to complete a mission. This is a great opportunity. The Mad Slaughter Saint sneered, without the protection of old bastard Dark North, he's dead for sure. Where is he? Blood Soul Continent. What? Chapter 1132. Swoosh. The small spaceship dashed towards the Blood Soul mainland. At that moment, the spaceship activated its optical camouflage system to disguise itself as a meteorite and moved quickly towards the Blood Soul mainland. The reason being that the Blood Soul mainland seemed to be hostile towards people from the universe and was extremely xenophobic. Once they knew that there were foreign invaders, they would definitely come out in full force. Therefore, the appearance of the spaceship had to be disguised. Otherwise, it would definitely be surrounded by the natives of the Blood Soul mainland. By then, it would be impossible to escape even if it wanted to. What a strong pressure. Xiaoping immediately felt a strong tremor after the spaceship entered the atmosphere of the continent. It was as if there was a terrifying pressure coming from all directions, almost crushing the spaceship into an iron ball. If the spaceship was not made of special materials that could withstand the strong pressure, it would have been crushed into a piece of paper by the pressure of the atmosphere. Ordinary meteorites that entered the continent would be destroyed quickly, turning into a ray of light and falling to the ground. Oh no, the spaceship is out of control. All of a sudden, Xiaoping felt that the spaceship seemed to be unable to withstand the surface gravity of the Blood Soul mainland and was falling towards the ground at a crazy speed. Even the system could not control it. Boom. Like a meteorite, it plummeted at an unimaginable speed. Xiaoping had no choice but to resign himself to fate. He hoped that the natives of the Blood Soul mainland would not notice him. Otherwise there would definitely be a tragic fight. On an open space in the depths of a primeval forest in the Blood Soul mainland, a lady in white was lying on the ground. Her entire body was covered in blood and she was panting heavily. Her face was pale and it was obvious that she had suffered a serious injury. She could not even move a single step. In front of her, 7 or 8 men in black robes appeared. They surrounded the woman in white in an instant, so tightly that not even a drop of water could trickle through. There was no gap for her to escape. These people were a little different from ordinary humans. There seemed to be unique mysterious golden patterns on their foreheads that seemed to contain a mysterious power. The surrounding air was affected and distorted. If Xiaoping was here he would definitely know that they were the natives of the Blood Soul mainland. They were from the Soul clan. Lu Rulan, I'd like to see where else you can escape to. Surrender now. That's right. You've suffered a blow from the Hall Master of the Huaining City branch. There's no way for you to escape. If you still dare to resist stubbornly, don't blame us for continuing to destroy you. These black-robed men stared at the white-robed woman with ferocious expressions. Their killing intent was boiling. Bao Mingyuan, if that despicable bastard had not harmed my Lu family, how could you have done anything to me? The lady in white, Lu Rulan, gritted her teeth. Her beautiful eyes were filled with rage and dissatisfaction. Yes, you're right. As the former Soul Palace Saintess, your status is high above. People like us are simply ants and you don't even put us in your eyes. The leader of these men in black, Bao Mingyuan, laughed wickedly. The Lu family used to be a big family in Huaining City. It was powerful and had many experts. No one dared to provoke it. But now it's gone. The entire Lu family has been exterminated. Only you, the surviving member of the Lu family, are still alive. However, you can't blame others for this. Who asked your Lu family to be so stupid? You actually dared to collude with the Outer Realm Fiend Devils. This is a great crime that warrants the death of your entire family. If you don't die, who will? He looked down at the white-robed woman, Lu Rulan. You know exactly what the truth is. If you want to blame someone, you can always find a pretext. Lu Rulan clenched her teeth. Her beautiful eyes showed a hint of anger. This is just that old dog slander. Thinking to this point, she was incomparably furious. Just this groundless accusation was enough for the secondary palace master to uproot the entire Lu family. Not a single person was spared. Even her family members were killed. She was only barely able to escape from Huaining City under the desperate escort of her guards. However, she did not expect the other party to pursue her relentlessly. After 3 days and 3 nights they still caught up to her here. One could imagine how cruel the other party was. They were determined to kill everyone and not leave any trouble behind. It doesn't matter if it's slander or not. What's important is that the Lu family has been exterminated. Lady Lu, you will also become a prisoner and that's Sir's exclusive property. That's right. That's what happens to those who disobey the secondary palace master. No one will have a good life. But don't worry. Lady Lu has a heavenly soul body. She has extraordinary talent and is an outstanding beauty. The secondary palace master ordered us to capture you alive so you won't die. However, you'll be the secondary palace master's woman from now on. Bao Mingyuan and the rest looked at Lu Rulan greedily like wolves. It must be said that Lu Rulan was indeed an outstanding beauty. Even though she was in a sorry state, it could not hide her unparalleled beauty. Her entire body was emitting a holy light. Her torn clothes revealed her fair skin. Her impressive figure was faintly discernible. Her 2 long legs were lying on the ground powerlessly. She had no power to resist at all. In addition to her sacred and inviolable noble temperament, they could only look down on her in the past. However, she was now a prisoner. The contrast between the 2 temperaments was simply tempting. It made people want to give her to Rulan. Perhaps there were not many men in this world who could resist her charm. If not for the secondary palace master of Huaining City, they might not have been able to control Yuan. They would have wanted to press this saintess, who was once high and mighty, onto the ground and enjoy her. After all, Lu Rulan was not just an outstanding beauty. She also had a heavenly soul body. It was said that if a powerhouse were to undergo dual cultivation with her, their soul power would continuously increase. A genius like that was hard to come by even in 1,000 years. Therefore, the secondary palace master coveted her. He did not want Lu Rulan to die just like that. He wanted her to become his exclusive property. Lady Lu, I'm not going to talk to you anymore. Come back to Huaining City with us. Bao Mingyuan and the rest went forward and wanted to capture Lu Rulan. Even if I die, I won't let you guys get what you want. Lu Rulan's beautiful eyes were filled with determination. With a swoosh, she immediately pulled out a sharp dagger and was about to slash it across her fair neck. Oh no! Bao Mingyuan and the rest had a drastic change in expression. If Lu Rulan were to die here, they might not be able to complete the mission given by the secondary palace master. All of them would be severely punished and their lives would be worse than death. However, at that moment, a giant meteorite fell from the sky at an extremely fast speed, tearing through the sky. Dong. The meteorite landed on the ground and created a deep pit with a diameter of a few kilometers. It almost flattened the surroundings and a terrifying force spread in all directions. What? Bao Mingyuan and the rest were shocked. They could not withstand the force and were sent flying. They spun a few times in the air before crashing hard on the ground. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.